A very warm welcome to all of you. I, CA Indrajit Kaur Bamra, the moderator for this webinar, on behalf of the Digital Accounting and Assurance Board, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to join us today. And a very warm welcome to all the participants joining us for the Stay Ahead of Evolving Data Protection webinar. We are here to discuss the importance of data protection, its legal implications in different countries, and the cost of non compliance. We will also explore the challenges faced in this field and the solutions to overcome them. So, without further ado, I am delighted to introduce the chairman of the committee, CA Charanjot Singh Nanda, one of the most senior council members serving since 2004, and he's also chairing the Digital Accounting and Assurance Board, Committee on Financial Markets and Investor Protection, Committee on Information Technology of South Asian Federation of Accountants SAFA as chairman, and Board of Internal Audit and Management Accounting ICI as the vice chairman. He brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to this session. So please join me in welcoming him to share his keynote address with us. Over to you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Indrajit. The Honorable Vice President of the Institute, C.A. Ranjit Kumar Agarwal, who hails from Calcutta. I am very thankful that he is here to enlighten us and take us through the entire journey of how we could become a compliant society. I have here two of my very dear friends, Shri Sanjeev, who hails from Singapore, and Mr. Michael Thoresen. Both of them are celebrated speakers, and both of us will take us through the perils of data piracy. Data piracy, data protection, these are very important areas where we need to focus. With technology blooming, I want to tell you that DAB, under the aegis of which this program is being done, is doing a yeoman's job to ensure that we enlighten our membership so that they go home enlightened. The most important thing which I would like to tell you is to understand how we have to work in the perspective of things that can ultimately change our landscape. At the ICI level, DAB is the first in the entire globe to come out with 23 forensic investigative accounting standards. The guidance note of which is being done by the board now, and you'll be happy to know that from 1st July 2023, forensic standards will be mandatory in India. The council is very pleased to announce that, and we are working overnight to ensure that we give the best to the membership at large. Data has lot of perceptions. There were times when people who had gold were considered to be rich. People who had oil were considered to be rich. Today, people who have data and know how to use that data to create value and worth are people who are the best. We as auditors, we as internal auditors know how to do data mining, how to do data validation, how to do data, you can call systematic data, and present it to the board or to the audit committee as the case may be. Because the most important thing is to give information to all the membership at large so that they are able to effectively bring forth the thought process and movement to create value. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to very candidly tell you that with advancement of technology, things will become very sophisticated. Technology has three very major benefits. The first, you don't have to go for samples. You have to go through the entire population. The second thing, computers don't have wives. They don't have husband either. So therefore, the work is finished on time. They are not stopped for festivals. They don't feel things are monotonous. And third and final thing, the computer work, technology work is error-free. So ultimately, all these monotonous, all these data-related works, all these data analytics are now shifting to the technology where we get the best results. But the most important thing is how to utilize that, how to ensure that whatever data is there is properly protected, how to ensure that your systems are not prone to hacking. And for that, your board, the Digital Accounting and Assurance Board, has set up so many programs, right from data hacking to digital awareness. We have embarked upon a very ambitious project. The name of the project is Technology for Non-Technology Professionals. We are keen that each and every chartered accountant of whatever age he may be, he has to be data compliant. He needs to understand data and he needs to understand the robust benefits of data. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have best of the speakers and more importantly, my Vice President, say Ranjit Kumar Agarwal. So I not speak much. I stop my verdict here by just requesting that all of us, ultimately, I want to tell you that without next 2 or 3 years, there will be no work. So if you want to go deep into the professional work you're doing, either in practice or in job, you have to be data compliant. You need to understand the various nuances of data, how to use that, how to create that, so that you're able to effectively work in that tandem. So I welcome you all. People in large numbers have joined. I welcome my Vice President. I welcome both the speakers, Mr. Sanjeev and Mr. Thoresan, who have joined to add value to the initiatives of the board. Thank you. Thank you so much. Indrajit, the dais is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your words of wisdom with us, and your insights and expertise are greatly appreciated. So, we are honored to have with us today the Vice President of ICAI, CA Ranjit Kumar Agarwal, who has been elected to the 23rd, 24th, and 25th Central Council of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India 3 times in a row, and has chaired many committees with several accomplishments to his credit. As a visionary reformist, he implemented bank branch audit software and conceptualized and implemented UDIN, which indeed is a landmark initiative of ICAI. And as a chairman of the Ethical Standard Board of ICAI, he played a key role in revising the Code of Ethics after a 10-year gap, showcasing his expertise in professional ethics. He was recently appointed as technical advisor to the board member of SAFA, South Asian Federation of Accountants, demonstrating his achievements on the international stage. He is a passionate leader who firmly believes in the inclusive development of society. So we extend a warm welcome to Vice President of ICAI, CA Ranjit Kumar Agarwal, and we eagerly await your insight on this important topic. So over to you, sir.
Before Sir speaks, I would like to tell him that not only in India, but internationally, our Honorable Vice President, Mr. Ranjit Agarwal, is known as the UDIN man. The man who conceived UDIN and put it across. Again, a great step towards data protection. Again, a great step to stop fake balance sheet signings. I would request Vice President to kindly dwell on this when he speaks, because this program is seen not only in India, but 8 of the SAFA countries, including Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Maldives, Sri Lanka. So over to the Honorable Vice President for his words of wisdom. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Indrajit Kaur, for very nice word. And my chairman of this board, CA Charanjot Singh Nanda. We have very 2 eminent speakers, Mr. Michael and Mr. Sanjeev, and all the delegates who are listening to this webinar. Good afternoon to all of you. I think it's a very, very important event organized by the Digital Accounting Assurance Board in the subject stay ahead of the evolving data protection law. Now, this data is not a new word. If you remember, in 18th century, the oil is the biggest resource for the country. And in this 21st century, data is the biggest resource of the country. That's why recently the data has been called as a new oil for the reform of this country. Data has no boundary. It can be created, used, stored in any jurisdiction, beyond boundary, any places on real-time basis. And that's why the way digitalization is happening across the world. And you will be happy to know India is leading in the digitalization era across the globe. The recent survey has said that total digital transaction of the world, the 40% of the total digital transaction belongs to India, because India has the young population, demographic dividend is there, and there are faster adaptability in the young people are making this digital India more successful compared to rest of the world. India has the average age 29 years. China has 36 years. Japan has 46 years. So we have the advantage as far as young population is concerned. That's why the data are generating across the globe faster in India compared to rest of the world. But if the evolving of the data in this century is going that way, we can perceive that time is coming within next 10 years, no annual balance sheet or quarterly balance sheet will be relevant. The entire data, the resource, the decision making will be on real-time basis, because the historical data will become history, and whatever real-time data are generated, that will be the real strength for the decision making across the boardroom of the all corporate houses. There are challenges also, because the more data are generated, the more data threat is there. Cyber security, cyber threats are there. Recently, you might have seen this ransomware in Sun Pharma industry. The entire data security was breached by the ransomware. You might have remembered there was in Delhi, all the flight operations were stalled because some ATC was, some paralysis data was stopped because of all the flight incoming, outgoing. The system was hacked, and that's why 2 hours, more than 2 hours, entire flight operations were stopped. So these are the threats of the data security also. But as far as this Indian perspective is concerned, right now we have an Information Technology Act 2000 and the Indian Evidence Act 1872. But recently, the government has come out in November 22, this Digital Personal Data Protection 2022. And this is yet to be passed by the Parliament, wherein the huge security aspects has been incorporated in this new bill, wherein the penal provision has been given from rupees 50 crore to 250 crore. So if the personal data is collected by any vendor or by any corporate, they can use that data only for it has been collected. They are not authorized to use those kind of data for any other means or any other way the corporates want. So these are the protection clauses have been incorporated in this data, personal data protection bill, which is yet to become in India. But globally, if you see, India has already led as far as data security is concerned, as rightly said by our chairman, the forensic accounting standard. India is the first country of the world which has come out with the forensic accounting standard. Nowhere in the world forensic accounting standard exists as of today now. The UDAN he was talking about, India first time came with the UDAN concept, where all the forgery of the signature by any professionals were stopped. Now this UDAN concept we have implemented in all the SAARC country, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, and Sri Lanka. These 4 countries have adopted our UDAN because these are the protecting as a shield to the signature of the professional. And based on this concept of UDAN, the government of India has taken our concept by CBDT and CBIC also. So the huge leadership in the data protection that India is taking, it's phenomenal. And as we have a lot of new things are coming across the globe, how to protect the data of the individual, that is the biggest concern of the entire world. And that's why India has come out with the Data Protection Policy 2022, which is supposed to be passed. But the more digitalization is happening, the more data is going to be generated. And just to protect the data of the individual, if we can be successful, then we can see India can lead as far as data generation is concerned, because this data is the new oil, it is the new economy, it is the new resource which can frame the policy of the entire boardroom of the corporate world. I think we have a very, very good speaker in the form of Sanjeev ji and Michael. He will elaborate on the what data protection happening across the globe, various parts of the world. As far as India is concerned, they are aware, but other parts of the country, our viewers may not be aware. So what area we are lagging behind or world is lagging behind, this webinar will be a resourceful seminar, learning experience to all the viewers who are participating in this webinar. And this is the way the Digital Accounting Assurance Board is working under the leadership of Charanjit Singh Nanda, how to keep our member abreast with the new things happening, new technology coming, and how to protect the data of the entire individual across the globe. With these words, I compliment Nandaji and his team for coming out with the seminar, and I compliment Sanjeevji and Michael for their vast knowledge. The members will be benefited through this webinar. So with these words, I close here. Thank you very much for inviting me for this brief introduction of this data protection policy law. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a ton, Honorable Vice President, and elaborately discussing the concept of UD. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Over to Inderjeet, please.
So thank you so much, sir. And I express my utmost gratitude to you for having enlightened us with your pearls of wisdom, and your profound insights and expert acumen are indeed immensely cherished. So thank you so much, sir. And presently before us, we have the esteemed presence of our past president of ICI, CA, Nihar N. Jambusaria, an exemplary figure who has been appointed as the president of South Asian Federation of Accounting SAFA. Hailing from Mumbai, he is a fellow chartered accountant possessing an impeccable blend of erudition, experience, foresight, technical expertise, and professional excellence. A combination truly worth emulating. So, furthermore, CA Jambusaria holds the distinguished position of being a member of the Professional Accountants and Business Advisory Group of the International Federation of Accountants, and he has also represented ICI on the council and has been a member of several vital committees which were constituted by the Indian government and regulators for policy formulation. Notably, he has contributed his valuable insights to committees such as the Government Accounting Standard Advisory Board and Audit Advisory Board, both established by C&AG of India. So we extend a warm welcome to our esteemed guests and eagerly anticipate their insights on this crucial topic. So welcome, sir.
Which one? You just said sir, so I'm not sure which one you want to go first. Or I can just jump in.
I think Inderjeet, Nihar Bhai is not there, so you can call any one of the speakers.
Okay.
Someone
from the team told me to introduce Nihar, sir. So
No,
no
he
worries.
is not able to. There is a tech. He has been calling me
Okay.
now and then. There is a technical glitch where he's not able to join. No issues.
No problem. So, as our esteemed dignitaries have shed light on the topic at the hand, it is now our privilege to introduce two distinguished speakers who will share their valuable insights in the matter, Mr. Michael Thorson and Mr. Sanjeev Kathani. So let's introduce both of them. So firstly, Michael Thorson, the founder of Great Distributed Information System Incorporated, is a recognized leader in the field of data privacy and protection. He aims to revolutionize the way we create, consume, share, and safeguard data. Michael's passion for data protection stems from personal experiences, having been a victim of multiple identity thefts and a third party attempting to change his name. In addition to his practical expertise, Michael holds several certifications, including A+ and Network Plus certifications for CompTIA, as well as Certified Information Privacy Professional Canada, Certified Information Privacy Professional Europe, Certified Information Privacy Manager, and Certified Information Privacy Technologist from the International Association of Privacy Professionals. Michael has also been recognized as a fellow in information privacy by the IATP. And he is a sought-after international speaker, having presented on the topic of data sovereignty at Decentralized 2019, organized by the University of Nicosia, and while on a trade tour with a delegation of fellow startup founders, facilitated by the Canada Trade Commissioner Office, and he was also invited to present with a panel of experts at the 3rd Annual Global Meeting on Responsible AI for Law Enforcement, organized by the United Nations Interregional Crime and Justice Research Institute. and Robotics, and the International Criminal Police Organization Global Complex for Innovation. So I would like to welcome him, and in addition to him, as we know, the two speakers will going to speak simultaneously. So I would like to introduce the other speaker here too. And he is Sanjeev Gathani, who is an accomplished professional with over 20 years of experience in privacy, governance, risk, and compliance. He has worked with diverse range of business across Asia and is widely recognized for his expertise and achievements. Mr. Sanjeev is the first Singaporean to be awarded the prestigious MGP, Full Member Corporate Governance Practitioner from the United Kingdom, and MAP, Master Access and Privacy Professional from the Privacy and Access Council of Canada. So, apart from these notable achievements, Mr. Sanjeev has also completed the requirements for being a certified privacy professional in Singapore, Indonesia, and the United States of America. In 2022, Mr. Sanjeev was honored with the Outstanding Leadership Award at the Law 2.0 conference for his exceptional contributions to the field of data privacy. And currently, he serves as the Group Compliance Officer for a leading pharmaceutical company and also runs his own consultancy practice that specializes in privacy and cybersecurity. And he has successfully enabled numerous clients across the Asian region to be compliant in this space. In recognition of his outstanding work, Sanjeev's consultancy practice was awarded the Best Consultancy and Training Provider at the prestigious Singapore Business Awards in 2023. So, please join all of us in welcoming our distinguished speakers, Mr. Michael Thorson and Mr. Sanjeev Gathani. Over to you both, sir.
Thank
Great,
you,
madam, great. I welcome both of them, but before they speak, I have seen Mr. Nihar Jammustaria was having a technical glitch, has joined. So I would request the President Safa to kindly give his welcome address and then we can proceed with the session.
Thank you, Nandaji, and sorry for joining late. There was some technical glitch because of which I was unable to join.
I appreciate that. I am also at the airport. Please carry on.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And for the audience, only one message that we all are busy learning technology, using big data, and using all techniques to apply data for our advantage and clients' advantage. But always the most important question, which is neglected many times, is the protection of data. Because when data travels at such a great speed, it travels beyond the persons who are intended to receive and who are intended to use the data. And that is why it is very important to learn what are the cyber securities firewalls available to us to protect our data and see that they are not misused or they travel beyond jurisdictions. Today, I think in the whole series of so many webinars that you have organized, Raji, this is the most important topic today, because all these learnings will have no meaning if the data is not adequately protected. We have expert speakers today. I would not like to take time of the speakers and come between you and him. And therefore, I'm sure that they will add a lot of value and you will have great learning today. Thank you so much. Over to you.
So thank you so much, sir, for joining us today and sharing your words of wisdom with all of us. And so we have already introduced our two distinguished speakers. So I would like to welcome both of them to continue the session.
Thank you very much, Inderjeet. Quick little aside thing. My Canadian tongue is not very well practiced with Indian and region names. So if I mispronounce your name, please let me know. I very much understand the importance of a name as it is tied to an identity, which you will later, as you've from the introduction, I very much value my identity as well and value others as it can be very easily stolen. I also want to express my gratitude to the organizers and the Institute for making this possible. Also, my friend Sanjeev, his efforts in making this possible as well. I recently had the good fortune to work with a few people from the Pakistan area, and as a token of me expressing my gratitude, I would like to extend what I understand to be a traditional greeting from the area, Sat Sri Akal. So I will start the presentation here.
Sat Sri Akal, Michael ji. Sat Sri Akal. Great, thanks.
Thank you. There we go. So as we are aware, today's topic is stay ahead of evolving data protection. First off here, I will pass the floor to Sanjeev to give any opening remarks and add anything to his introduction if he so wishes.
Okay, so firstly, I would like to thank all the organizers. I think they have done a phenomenal job, and Nanda sir has set the stage right. The data is the most prized asset today. It is not money, it is not oil, but it is data. And I think all the distinguished speakers before us, I think I have learned a lot from them, right? And they have set the tone that where we are heading. So I think it is apt for us to now learn from each other and share our experiences that if the data is not being protected, as what Sir has said, data travels at the speed of light today, you are going to have the time of your life. Okay, and without taking away the limelight from my colleague, my buddy, my friend in Canada, you know, he will share with you his personal experiences, how his data was compromised. I will share with you mine, how it was compromised, how my life went from upside down to downside up. Okay, so that's all I want to say. I will let Mike continue the rest of the story.
Thank you, Sanjeev. So as Inderjeet very thoroughly mentioned, with my introduction, IAPP Fellow Information Privacy, hold a number of certifications for IAPP, also with CompTIA, A+, Network Plus. What wasn't mentioned is that I'm a multi-generational serial entrepreneur. I love solving problems, and it actually, this love for entrepreneurship and solving problems started with my grandfather and grandmother on my mother's side, who took on the challenge of starting up a ambulance service and took over the local funeral home. And the joke amongst the community and my family over the years has been that they got you coming and going. They got you when you were born and they got you when you died. They essentially cornered the market. My work is definitely not in that field. It's in data privacy, fueled largely because of the data breaches data breaches that fueled the cybercrime that led to my identity being stolen not just once but twice. And one correction from the introduction: it was not just an attempt to change my name; it was actually successful. And in Canada, if the name is changed on your credit profile or your name is changed anywhere, it becomes very difficult to do stuff. So I went through a number of years where I couldn't get basic banking services. There were certain jobs I couldn't get, professional services jobs, because I couldn't pass the background checks because no one could find me. They would use my information to try and find my credit profile, try to pull records, score, nothing would pop up. And interesting enough, this started off in a very unusual and almost innocuous way. When I was studying to be a systems analyst, I was at home in my desk studying, and I get a call from a neighboring city. A car dealership calls me up and congratulates me on the purchase of my new vehicle. To which I said, yeah, I don't think so. I haven't been to your city since I was 9 years old. I'm working full-time and studying as a student. There is no way I would qualify for a loan on a new vehicle. You must have the wrong person. To which they apologized and said, okay, we'll follow up with the police. And that was the last I heard of that issue. Little did I know that there was other things going on in the background. When you're a youth or a young man or whatnot, that you don't think of identity theft or really are worried about your credit profile. You're just trying to get through school, get a good job, and then build your profile and get credit, the house, the car, that kind of stuff. When I first clued in that there was something wrong with my credit profile, that my name had been changed, I had finished up 2 terms at the with Provincial Telecom, SaskTel here, and when I went to go find a new job, that's when I found out that I couldn't pass background checks and such. So I was forced to either go flip burgers and work in the restaurant industry, fall back on my previous skill set there, which I did for a bit. Worked in restaurants, and then began my entrepreneurship journey. If I can't find work, then I'll create my own work. Had a couple of small businesses previously, but then eventually I jumped into Crate Distributed Information Systems with my wife as my co-founder. And we've set on a mission to evolve how the world consumes, creates, shares, and protects data. We'll carry on with the presentation. What is data protection? Most people think it's this black box of secrets and tools and ninja-like, but that's not the case. Data protection is safeguarding important information from corruption, compromise, or loss. And it is driven by an acronym, the CIAR. For those with a data security background, you will be familiar with this. First is confidentiality. As data protection professionals or data privacy professionals, we are entrusted to keep information confidential. It's stored with us in trust, it's shared with us in trust that it's used in a specific way that has been communicated to us by the vendor. Integrity. This isn't necessarily integrity about the vendor or the solution provider, it's about the integrity of the data itself. And so when you're protecting something or you're maintaining its privacy, you have to be able to maintain the integrity of the data itself. And availability. As professionals, we have to make sure that the information is available for use, because data protection is very much also about business continuity and making sure that information is available. Resilience. When something happens, we need to be able to restore business operations, restore that data, and continue the service for our customers or for the customers of the companies that we are working for, working with. So as you can see, data protection is far more than take some information, put it into a box, keep it tucked away and keep it private and keep it away from peering eyes. There's many aspects to protecting data. If you think data protection sounds like data security or data privacy, you're correct. Sanjeev and I have very much taken the position that data security and data privacy are one and the same. They have to work together synergistically. There are parts of the world and organizations that are taking the stance or have taken the stance over many years of privacy and security are separate. There's a walled garden in between. The two teams work independently. And for the most part, organizations focus on security and think because we're secure, we have privacy. It's not entirely true. You think of a glass house that has keypads, security systems, locks, and such. Well, you have security, but you don't have privacy. I can see into your home. So if you put up drapes and curtains and such, well, now I can't see inside. You now have security and privacy. Quick little side. I see something on the chat. Am I supposed to be watching the chat, or is someone going to be watching that?
No, Mike, I will watch it. You carry on.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Next, we will move into myths and truths of data protection. First myth is, I do not need to comply with the privacy laws of a foreign country. This is so very wrong for 2 reasons. Data privacy laws, if you look at them on a global level, are split into 2 categories. And we can also divide this up geographically as well. For the most part, the Western world, the location of the data subject is the concern regardless of citizenship. So if Mr. Sanjeev or Inderjeet or any of the esteemed people here were to come over to Canada, you would inherit the protections with Canadian privacy law. Conversely, in Asia, I understand, and Sanjeev, correct me if I'm wrong, citizenship of a data subject is the focus, irrespective of location. So if with Sanjeev, again, here comes to Canada, the expectation of the Singapore government is that Canada would extend to Sanjeev the protections that he would be afforded at home. Correct?
Yes. So, Mike, let me just add something here to what you said. I think there is a lot of misconception amongst people that, you know, privacy is something that it's not very important or they can get away with it. So what the world has done or many countries have done is, you know, they've put in privacy regulations. And I think India is one of those that has put the bill, but it's not yet passed in parliament. It's just a matter of time. So what Mike said, that if I'm a Singaporean and I'm traveling to India, India has to accord me the level of protection that I will get in my country. So that protection has to be at the minimum Singapore standard, not India standard. It cannot be lower. If anything, it has to be higher. Right? So if I go to Europe, of course, the data protection, Mike will tell you, in Europe is crazy. It is absolutely mind-blowing to comply with GDPR. And I think in India, we got a lot of BPOs, right? I think Indrajit can correct me if I'm wrong. There's so many business processing, you know, companies in Bangalore, in Chennai, right? And they process a lot of data of a lot of people, including Europeans, right? So we got to be very careful. Second thing is that, you know, I think Mike talked about data and, you know, where the data is going. Today, you ask anybody, and all of you being CAs, you ask them, where is the data? They will point at the sky. It's in the cloud. So I find it very fascinating when I talk to a CA, he says, data, cloud pe hai. So Mike, in Hindi means the data is in the cloud. Okay. Then you ask them, where is the cloud? The cloud is upstairs. I mean, seriously, that's not the answer, because you need to know which jurisdiction, right? Today, a lot of people, they don't even know who their cloud service provider is. They take the cheapest and they think the cheapest is the best. Cheap doesn't mean good. And as chartered accountants, I think you all handle a lot of personal data, right? Or personal identifiable information. Now, I just share with you before I hand over back to Mike. If you're traveling to Australia, let's say you're Indrajit or you're Nanda Kumar sir, you're going to Melbourne or Sydney and you have a laptop. On your laptop, you got personal data of people. The Australian government, when you land, they have the right at the Immigration and Checkpoint Authority to check your laptop for whatever data that you have therein. And how have you ensured that that data is properly secured? Just like when you all travel on airplanes, I don't know about you all, maybe you CAs, as I know, they are very highly paid. So maybe you all go on business class. You have, you know, the nice seat and, you know, you have the privacy. But if you are traveling on economy, you find most people, they're on their laptops, they start working. And I'm the type that is very inquisitive. I will look at what you're doing. And half of the time, after they have a few drinks, they leave the laptop there and then they go to the washroom. They don't even do control, alternate, delete. So what do you think I would do? I just will turn the screen a little bit and I will look at what is the data around there. And it could very well be personal data, right? So no one bothers. So now the regulations are very clear. If you got any data on your laptop, your thumb drive, your whatever device, you need to ensure it has got adequate protection. So Singapore laws are very clear. If I go to India, they need to give me that protection what I get in Singapore. And unfortunately, I was in India for the last 7 months of last year. And I can tell you the hotel that I stayed, they absolutely had no idea. They were simply playing around with my data. My passport copy, they took a copy and they used as a recycled paper. And when I checked out, they just tear it and they throw it in the bin. Okay? That is a clear-cut example of a data breach. If I wanted, I could have taken action. But I mean, by the time I take the action in the court, I think I will be gone already. So that's the end of that story. Mike, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sanjeev. Your story with travel and such there reminded me actually of a story I heard from someone where their identity was stolen, but it wasn't used locally. So when they landed at their destination, they were immediately detained and arrested for identity theft and fraud because someone had used their identity in another country to take out credit and do other various fun things. So travel becomes very interesting when it comes with data protection, data privacy. Who knows? Maybe Sanjeev might be victim next time around. He goes to India and he'll land there and say, "Hey, you owe us $300,000 for this house that you took a mortgage out on and never paid." And Sanjeev be like, "What are you talking about? I did not buy a house. Stop. That's not me."
It's a very good example, Mike. I think what you gave, and I think for all those CAs in the room and from all over the region, especially when you travel, what do you do with your boarding pass? I think Nanda sir is traveling, right? Back from Ahmedabad to Delhi. Nanda sir, my free advice to you, please keep your boarding pass with you and don't throw it in the dustbin. Because with the boarding pass, I can do magic. I'm not trying to scare anybody in this webinar, but there are many a times when I travel in India across the different airports, I just have to look at the dustbin, whether it's Delhi International, Chennai, Bombay International Airport. I can get a whole string of data of Indian nationals, and then I can do like what they say, Adakadabra, and make a magic out of it. So it is fascinating. So please, 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 my earnest request to all people who travel, don't just discard your boarding pass in the dustbin. Okay? So continue, Mike.
Awesome. Thank you. Sound advice. Next slide. Myth: protecting the information of my customers, or in the trade and profession, we say data subjects is sufficient. Unfortunately, that is not the truth. As the definition of a data subject in privacy laws includes also protecting the personal information of your staff and any contractors that you work with. Also, organizations, you are required to protect the information that is generated from the processing. So when you are, for the accountants here, when you're auditing books and you generate reports, you have to keep those private as well. You've generated them, and you can call them your data that you've created. It's going to have personal identifiable information that's also derived from PII, or personally identifiable information. So you must keep that protected as well.
So just one thing, Mike, on this point that you have here, organizations are often required to protect the personal information of your staff. So in this room, Mike, they are all chartered accountants. So they are very intelligent, they're very smart. And when they go out there and do audits, especially payroll audits, right, where you will come across personal data. Now, you have to protect that personal data that you are auditing, right? You got to anonymize it in your records. That means I shouldn't be able to tell by looking at your work papers who this personal data belongs to. And most of the time, we do not do that. I've got auditors who come to me, they photocopy everything, they take it, and then they file it. And then that file goes from one CA firm to another CA firm to another CA firm. And hallelujah, the data is being compromised in 1,000 different ways. right? And they have absolutely no idea. So nowadays, I'm very particular whether it's Deloitte, KPMG, or whoever. I asked them, I said, you want to audit? There is no problem. I'm not stopping you. You're doing your job, but you sit down where I'm seated, you audit, you show me what you're documenting. What is written in your work paper? Because if in there you're going to write Sanjeev Gattani, passport number, blah, 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 salaries, blah, 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 bonus, so much, that becomes personal data. Right? And it's very important. The other point here, Mike mentioned that when you are outsourcing anything, the accountability rests with you. You cannot run away from it. I repeat, you cannot run away. You cannot outsource your accountability. Okay, we will talk more about that later.
Awesome. I guess a simple way of thinking about that is you have to protect the data of your customers' customers when you're, as an accountant, you're being contracted out to someone. Let's see here. Why is this? There we go. Another myth. Data privacy and protection laws are government schemes to control data. The truth here is data privacy laws were actually created to facilitate increased international commerce and prevent atrocities. As technology has progressed, it's become much, much easier to move data around, create data, share data. As we've heard earlier with the opening addresses, data is the new oil. It's the new currency. So you have to find a way to be able to protect that, because it's now very much very easy to to see and move data across borders, similar to when digital money became a thing. We saw these rules about the movement of currency between countries, because now it's, if I want to move currency, I can't just I don't have to walk across or hop on a plane or a train with a suitcase or briefcase of money. I can just wire it or write a check or use a credit card. So there was a choice of, we either lock down all data and it stays within the control of the laws of the region, or we can find a way to keep the information private and allow the data to flow, and therefore commerce to continue to grow and prosper. The other was to prevent atrocities. So World War II, when they were going around and collecting Jews and other people that the Germans felt were to be cast aside, if you will, having access to that data and be able to identify people of Jewish descent was a problem. So looking back, regulators and lawmakers have decided that, okay, we need to be able to keep this stuff protected and private and used only for the purposes of which it is intended. The US also had a similar view on the past, where they looked back and saw that when they included race in the census questionnaire, that then later allowed the government to identify people of Japanese origin or descent. So that made it easier for them to round them up and put them in internment camps during World War II. So data protection is very much rooted in protecting people, both now and in the future, as well as protecting international commerce and allowing it to flow freely. Myth.
Mike,
go ahead.
That's another very good point. I just want to share with the audience that the example that Michael gave on the atrocities, I think it's very important, Mike, for you just to elaborate a bit more and tell them the fundamental difference between European privacy laws, right, versus US and Asia. So I'll just share with them briefly. In Europe, that's why they're very particular about what data you collect. And I think Nandasa mentioned this during his opening address, right? And so did Mr. Agarwal. What data you collect and for what purpose you're using it for, right? That is extremely important. So in Asia, data protection laws do not apply to the government. Okay, so if I'm not happy with the Singapore government, I cannot take them to court. There are other laws that apply to the government. whereas in Europe, it is different. In US, is different, right? And I think Mike can share with you, especially during the pandemic in COVID, right? Singapore government, we had this thing called Trace Together. So it's basically an app where the government knows exactly where you go, what you do, every single minute of the day during the pandemic time. So if I went to a shopping center, I need to on my Bluetooth or use an app, the token, scan. So the government knows I went to this shopping mall, this time, this day, this shop, this is what I bought. And that was a bill passed in Parliament for national security. Now, if I don't like that the government had my data, tough luck. I cannot do anything. And subsequently, after COVID miraculously disappeared from the face of the earth, the governments here said that we have destroyed the data. How they destroyed the data, nobody knows. I repeat, nobody knows. The data has been destroyed. Okay, so there is a fundamental difference between Asian privacy laws and Europe, and why European laws are so strict is because of exactly what Mike said, what happened during World War II and during the Holocaust time. Okay, I wanted to share. Sorry, continue.
No worries. All good, Sanjeev. We're here to share knowledge. It's not just my stage here. It's for anyone who wishes to interject. On the Canadian side of things, it's interesting contrast. They tried doing contact tracing here. In some parts of Canada, it kind of took off and people are okay with it. In others, it was like, we're not having any of this. And so the federal government wanted to put through contact tracing, but the provincial governments, some of them fought back and said, no, that's a violation of privacy. And, we're not at a stage of where, you can just dictate, that this has to happen, right? Yes, COVID was very disastrous for a lot of areas and for many different reasons. But yeah, there was this pushback of like, no, we're not doing this here. Some provinces went ahead with it, or some regions, others didn't. The being able to go after the government is, I don't want to call it a blessing or a curse, but in some cases, it doesn't actually benefit you anything other than you get some recognition of some wrong that has been done. For example, one of the data breaches that I was a victim of was with Trade Skills Canada, and my student loan information was leaked. There was a class action lawsuit put forward because of the number of people that were involved, and a huge settlement was reached. The courts decided that the federal government had to pay out in damages, also had to pay for free credit monitoring for 7 years for everyone that was affected. Interestingly enough, because my name couldn't be found, they couldn't even pay for my credit monitoring. So I couldn't benefit from that because they couldn't apply credit monitoring because, well, my credit profile could not be found because it didn't match my name or anything. But we're going with this. The amount that was awarded once it all broke down, I think, was only like $50 Canadian. And there was the option to sue the government for further damages, but the burden of proof was so high, most couldn't meet that burden of proof and get those extra damages unless it was very obvious. So yes, it's nice to have that leverage, if you will, to be able to go after the government for when they've wronged you with your data privacy or protection or security. But it doesn't always work in your favor. Okay. So large amounts of data are needed to be useful to criminals. Unfortunately, that's not the case. 15 data points has been proven to be successful in re-identifying 99.98% of Americans. Less than this is needed to commit identity theft. Give you an example. If someone wants to change the name of my credit profile, I didn't realize it was so easy as submitting a single form that everyone fills out when starting new employment, but the name or the spelling of the name just has to be altered. And the credit bureau will take that form, they will accept it and treat it as a legal name change and actually change the name on the credit profile, which blew my mind when they explained to me on how my name was changed. In America and in some parts, and sometimes in Canada, it's not happening as much, as our laws are stricter than America. But in America, there literally are toddlers getting hundreds of thousands of dollars in credit card debt charged to the credit profile. It is amazing. So basically, these people are creating what they call synthetic identities, which are, yes, identities, but they take, say, the identity of a toddler or even a dead person, and then attach the income of a live person, but alter it in such a way that it looks as though the income belongs to the person that they're wanting you to believe to be them. Right. So now, this is, imagine opening up the mail and be like, hey, we're taking your toddler to court for $250,000 in credit card debt, or for a mortgage that was taken out in your great-great-grandfather's name, right? And you were listed as a contact or as a cosigner. So you really have to be careful about, one, the amount of data that you're collecting. As Sanjeev pointed out earlier, you have to make sure you're very careful about when you're sunsetting that data or you're archiving it. You have to be anonymizing it when it's no longer of use, or you're legally required to discard it. You also have to be careful about what data is lying around. As Sanjeev pointed out with the boarding passes, right? So you have to be careful also of what you discard at work, right? The cleaners going around and emptying out dustbins or paper bins, garbage bins, they can find a slew of stuff, right? Or let's say you leave your payroll stub on your desk and they're coming along and they're like, oh, hey, I didn't know Sanjeev made this much. Let's see if I can get a credit card in his name, right? So not only is data the new oil, the new currency, you only need very little of it versus money. If you want to do something damaging someone's life with from a money standpoint, it used to be you had to go rob a bank, you had to go and break into their safe, steal their jewels, that kind of stuff. Now it's just a little piece of information and you can wreak havoc. Cybercrime costs and fines are inconsequential. Truth. Cybercrime costs the global economy approximately $6 trillion, roughly twice India's GDP at the end of 2021. GDPR fines are some of the highest in the world, up to, dear. You okay there, Sanjeev? Cool. 20 million euro or 4% of the total global turnover, whichever is higher. So if you make less than what the 4% would be for the 20 million, they can still fine you up to 20 million euro. If you only made 20 million euro, well, if they really want to be harsh, they could put you out of business with just the fines. And 4% global turnover, for some companies, is not a lot of money. For others, where you have lower margins, it can be significant. You have anything to add on this, Sanjeev, or are you going to wait till you talk about your? I think you have some slides specifically on GDPR fines, correct?
Yeah, so I think you carry on, Mike. In the interest of
Awesome.
time, yeah, just carry on.
Okay. Now, the importance of data protection. Previously, chief information security officers, data privacy managers, privacy professionals, security professionals, when GDPR came out, it was, we have to be compliant and avoid these fines, right? It was all about protecting the fines, protecting the company from litigation, legal action. Unfortunately, people are like, oh, well, the chances of us being fined are low because there's too much work for the regulators and the courts to get through. And it kind of went to the wayside. So the importance of data protection now is about protecting people, and people include you. We are customers of organizations. Some of us are customers of the organizations that we work for, we advise. And just recently, I'm sure a number of you heard about the records of nearly 700 million Indian citizens that were compromised and leaked. And this spanned across 8 different metro cities, 24 states, 11 organizations, and 104 different categories of data, which included financial accounts, payment information, insurance data, student data, names and information about defense personnel, government employees, PAN card holders, and DMAT accounts. So this huge plethora of information, well, roughly 1 in 2 Indian citizens are affected by this. And with all this information, given we know you can use a little bit of information to cause significant damage in a person's life, imagine now what the fallout is on this, right? And think of it as, you are me. This is now, again, not to scare people, but this is the reality with all this information that is now known to have been leaked and sold and is now in the wild. The cat is out of the bag, and I hope none of you have to face what it is that I went through, but it is a stark reality that there will be many identity thefts coming of this, both locally, possibly internationally. And if anything you take away from my presentation is this, that when you're dealing with someone's data and it's misused, there is always a person, a name, a life behind that that is being put at risk. We will now, all right, solutions.
So, Mike, just before you go to solutions, I just want to add one thing here for all those CAs, to take note. If you all are doing business in Singapore and you have incorporated a company in the Republic of Singapore, it is mandatory by law that you put a data protection officer's name on the company registry body in Singapore. So we got a body called ACRA, which is the association for all the companies where you register your company. And as per the Singapore law, you need to put in a name of a data protection officer there of your company. Okay, it is extremely important. And if you do not put the name of your officer, then the director by default will be the name there. And most of the time, the directors are clueless as to what they need to do. Okay, and in certain jurisdictions, it's a criminal offense. In Malaysia, it's a criminal offense. In Philippines, it's a criminal offense. Okay, the directors will go to jail if it's proven that the organization was negligent in protecting the data that it had collected. Ladies and gentlemen, I can also share with you, or I am proud to announce to you, that if you are a data protection officer in the Republic of Korea, then you will be going to jail together with your director, because it is a criminal offense. So, like what Mike said, it is not something to take lightly. What they do in India, time will tell. But as what Nanda sir said, and even Mr. Agarwal and the last speaker, Mr. Nia, if I got the name right, NIHAR, right? He also mentioned that data is the new world. So I am sure India will come up with some sort of enforcement mechanism to punish the people who misuse the data that they have in their possession. Yeah, that's all.
The touch on the DPO, that was news to me. I was not aware of the criminal offense aspect in the Asia region. In Europe and in Canada, well, Canada doesn't have a DPO requirement as of yet, although I believe that's coming down with new legislation, federal legislation to replace PIPEDA. Europe requires a DPO if you are of a particular size. I don't remember the exact details off the top of my head right now. And
the other thing I can share, Mike, is that under Singapore law, if you're a Singapore incorporated company, your data protection officer must be available during office hours of Singapore to be able to answer calls and emails pertaining to data protection inquiries.
Now, do they have to be a resident of Singapore?
They don't need to be a resident. They can be a resident of Timbuktu. But you have to be operational during Singapore operating hours, which is Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. Singapore Standard Time till 5 p.m. Singapore Standard Time, including Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Singapore Standard Time.
Interesting.
Yes, it's fascinating. So you can be in Canada for all I care. They couldn't give two hoots. Your data protection officer must be available. And just to share with the audience, Singapore's biggest pastime is complain. Anything we don't like, we complain. So you just have to go online, complain, and the regulators will come and pay you a visit. That's the end of that story.
Oh, I didn't expect this to be as comical as it is, but I should have given what I know about you, Sanjeev. So just to finish up my point, in the Western world, DPOs generally are not held criminally liable, although I suspect that will be changing simply because we saw recently in the US or last year, it was mid last year, the first chief information security officer was actually held criminally liable and is facing jail time. So there might be a shift in the Western world towards this, to a similar attitude in Asia. So solutions obvious is awareness of laws. You don't know aware of the laws, you aren't aware of your responsibilities, and in this case in Asia, the risks to yourself in terms of facing fines or jail time or criminal litigation. Establish a global baseline if you're working with a company that has offices throughout the world. One good solution so that you're not having to maintain different policies, different procedures, and different ways of doing things in different parts of the world is find the lowest common denominator between all of them and use that as your baseline. Then all you have to worry about is when a regulation, a law, or guideline changes somewhere, you just have to go, okay, does this raise the bar at all for us? If it doesn't, you can ignore the change. If it does, then you just have to bump up your baseline to meet that. So it helps you to become almost compliant by default across many jurisdictions. I encourage everyone to shoot beyond compliance for two reasons. If we take an analogy to the finance worlds, we saw with SVB and a number of other banks that have gone now defunct in the US, they technically were all compliant. SVB, I think it was 3 weeks prior, had a glowing report that everything is fine, their audits passed, all this stuff, right? And then all of a sudden it's now, hey, we don't have actually any cash on hand and we're going to be going bankrupt and in a matter of days seized by the federal government. So my personal view is compliance is sometimes still too much risk. Shoot beyond compliance, protect yourself, protect your organization, protect your customers, customers. And also by shooting for a higher bar, if you do make a mistake, like say this is taken into consideration in Europe and in Canada is, in a sense, mitigating circumstances. They look at your effort. So if you are shooting for a higher bar above compliance and there's one area that you drop the ball, they take that into consideration. They show that you're putting the effort in. They see that you want to be a leader and that you want to be morally compliant. You're taking this seriously, so that can limit the action against you by a regulator. Actually, I'm curious, Sanjeev, is something similar to that in Singapore or in the Asia region?
Very similar. So this point about compliance, I mean, I can talk all day and I think, that will not be justice to everyone. But shooting beyond compliance is something that the regulators here also look at it. So they are trying to emulate what is in the West, right? But they're trying to also tell organizations that make compliance by design. Okay, so I just want to share a joke. I know it's, I'm not trying to dilute the point, but all of us are adults. So my joke is a very simple joke. Every morning when you wake up, what is the first thing that you guys do? I know this is a webinar, you can't answer. To me directly.
I can check
Yeah.
your phone.
Exactly. But most people tell me that they look at their spouse. I said, come on, be real. The first thing you do when you wake up is look at the phone and see who has messaged you. So it's basically an SOP, standard operating procedure. So it is by design. So your processes in your organizations have to be such that by design you are compliant. And it is more about substance over form, right? What happened in the US, it is just tick the box activity. Just put somebody there, say this is the data protection officer, this is the privacy policy, and get away with it. And again, Mike will tell you in Europe, you cannot just put a data privacy policy on the website that people don't understand. It has to be in simple English, not in the Queen's English. The King's English. Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. In the West, we have a saying here, shoot for the moon so you land among the stars, right? So either way, you're still ahead. Next solution, as Sanjeev already talked about, privacy by design. Bake this into your corporate culture so that whatever it is you're doing, you're privacy centric, you're privacy focused. The privacy is going to come as a result of whenever you're creating a policy or a procedure or you're advising a client. It's baked in. It's second nature. It's like breathing. And I very much encourage everyone to take a look at the Privacy by Design, the 7 principles from former Ontario Privacy Commissioner Dr. Anne Cavoukian. These principles have very much influenced a lot of regulations, especially in the Western world. GDPR is very much influenced by it. PETA obviously is very much influenced by it. So a great resource to have under your belt. Know what your customers expect. So you have to take into consideration what your customers expect from you from privacy, right? Because in the West, we call it the court of public opinion, right? So if you upset your customers, they may come after you, even though you might be compliant. Well, as far as they're concerned, you are misusing my data and they don't appreciate it. Investigate privacy enhancing technologies. These can be, leveraging the basics encryption, one-way hashing, looking at vendors that provide ways for you to anonymize and protect data. Risk analysis is your friend. I'm sure the accountants here are very much well-versed in risk analysis in some ways more than me, possibly. But risk analysis, game theory, that can all be applied now to data privacy, data protection, security, whatever you want to call it. And you have to be able to set a risk appetite and tolerances, right? So you have to decide for yourself and help with your organization decide what risk are we going to tolerate and what risk are we willing to take on, right? So the risk appetite is what you're willing to accept if something goes wrong. The tolerance is what you're willing to tolerate in an extreme circumstance and no further. And use the plan, do, check, act, /adjust. Data protection is not a one-time thing. It's not a set and forget. Come up with a plan, execute that plan, check the results of that plan, and then act or adjust accordingly to make any corrective measures. And then here you are, you're back at plan. Do a plan, improve, do, check, adjust. It's a continuous cycle. No regulator or anybody will expect you to be perfect overnight. But if you have also this record of the cycle you're going through continuously improving, then you will be in a much better position, both within the eyes of the regulator and your customers and the public. Extra slide. That brings us to the Q&A portion. I'll open the floor to anyone who has questions, or Inderjeet, if you're going to be funneling the questions.
Yeah, so Mike Indrajit has just messaged, so she has got questions. Now it's over to her, and then yeah, we will take the questions.
Thank you so much, sir. So I would like to take question from, just give me a second.
Indrajit ma'am, if the question is difficult, direct it to Michael. If it's easy, direct it to me.
Okay, sir. Sure.
I'll stop the share here, make this a little more personal.
So I'm taking question from the last one, Geeta Pradyuman Vyas. Ma'am is asking how to deal with and what happens when there takes place data protection breach of a government data after our migration to a country.
So which country?
She is from Canada.
Okay, so she's from Canada and she's migrating to where?
Migrating to any country other than Canada.
Oh, so if I understand the question is she wants to know, or sorry, they want to know what their data protections are when they leave Canada.
Yes.
Okay, unfortunately, zero. When you leave Canada, even if you're traveling or you're migrating or moving to another country, from that point forward, the Canadian data protection does not move with you. Canada data protection is very much about the borders in which the Canada has the federal, the legislation is jurisdiction. It doesn't move with the person, unfortunately. You can rely on, though, that your data that you have generated and the data that has been accumulated, both in the private and public sectors, has to be maintained and still protected. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
That was an easy question.
It was.
You should get a harder one.
I jumped in on you there. I'm sorry. I had to steal the easy one from you, and we'll volley it back and forth. I'm trying to steal the easy ones from you.
Okay, next question is from Parul. How the data can be validated in case of small private limited companies?
How the data can be validated?
Yes. In case of small private limited companies.
So it's like validated for what, like say KYC, know your customer, or customer due diligence actions, that kind of stuff, or something less specific.
They haven't cleared this one.
Yeah, maybe you can type to her or she can unmute or something, because I need to understand the context in which she's asking the question.
While you're doing that, in Canada, if you're doing a KYC or anti-money laundering check or politically exposed persons check, there are databases which you can connect to. The number of vendors are available that amalgamate or concentrate this, and you can usually get access to it for a very nominal fee. There is drawing a blank. Authentic with a Q on the end. They have a product actually where you can do AML, anti-money laundering, personally exposed persons, know your customer checks, and do your customer due diligence for $2.50 per name that you submit. And they only charge you for results that come back as a pass. So if someone comes back with a fail or if not found, they don't charge you. So even small companies, there are services out there that you can leverage very easily to protect yourself. Oh, you're muted. Oh, there we go.
Answer to the question already cleared. So can we take the next question?
Sure.
Okay. So question from Venkat Satya Prakash. What tools is used for data protection beside encryption, hash, etc.?
Do you want to take that one, Sanjeev? I know you're taking the CIPT soon, so you want to stretch your technology muscles?
The question is interesting. One way is, what he said is encryption, right?
Yep.
If I'm not wrong. Besides that, I mean, I will let Mike talk from a technical standpoint, but from a non-technical standpoint, I would say limit what are you collecting the data for. If you don't need it, don't collect it, right? Or the other way you can do is that do 2FA, have password, right? That's another way to do it. Or you can put it in the cloud and then, make sure that the access to it is restricted to certain people, right? But other than that, I will let Mike answer it.
The data minimization aspect there, yeah. So if you don't have the data, you don't need to protect it. For anyone with martial arts experience or understand the cultural background in some of the martial arts forms, it's the best defense is not to be there. So again, if you're not there, you're not in the fight. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have the data. You don't have to protect it. Beyond encryption and hashing, the obvious ones, which or I don't say obvious, the common ones, which Sanjeev touched on already, are like access controls. You got your 2FA, two-factor authentication. If we're going back to the privacy by design principles, there is the or privacy by design and security by design principles. You have the need to know and least privilege. So the provincial government here actually, one of the crown corporations that was managing health data here in Canada for the province of Saskatchewan, suffered a breach for a number of reasons, but the two that stood out to me was they left need to know and least privilege on the honor system. So everyone in the health authority, health region, was able to access everyone's information as they sought fit. So this meant, a gynecologist, a female reproductive doctor could go ahead and grab some stuff about, a man's prostate exam. Doesn't make any sense why they're doing it, but they can if they want. They could also look at, be paid to look at information of prominent figures and grab their information, again, without having any real need to know or any technological checks here. So that's where we start getting into role-based access and access that controls that need to know and that least privilege. If you don't need to know the information, I don't care if you're in the finance department, if you have no reason to be looking up particular data that you're looking for, you should not be able to get access to it. So in this case, access controls are very much your friend.
Perfect.
Okay, Michael, that question Geeta Pradhiman Vyas raised about the migration to our country, she said she have migrated to Canada, and she has a question that actually I have migrated to Canada from India, and I received an email from Canada government about data breach notice. So after that, can I sue the government of Canada?
Yes,
Wow.
you can.
That's interesting, Mike.
Short answer is yes, you can. And there will be no shortage of lawyers that will love to go after that, because there's already obviously the federal laws. There's also a number of cases that have set case law and other legal precedences out there for suing the government with data privacy violations. So all the power to you, and I hope you get more than $50 like I got.
Please ask her to Google Michael's number on the internet and call Michael and he will help you in the process. Man, I like the CAs.
So thank you so much. And our next question from Jitendra Kumar. As the cyber criminal are technologically ahead, how corporate protect itself if data processing outsourced and service provider failed?
Sorry,
You have to
I'm not
repeat
great
the
with
question.
I'm not great with accents, and you were also breaking up there, so I did not hear the question.
Yeah,
Okay,
just
I'm
repeat the
repeating. I'm repeating.
Okay.
As the cyber criminal are technologically ahead,
Okay.
how a corporate protect itself if data processing outsourced and service provider failed?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let me try, Mike, and then you can chip in. So it's a very, very interesting question from Mr. Jitendra, right?
sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, very interesting. I mean, Jitendra sir was my favorite actor, so it's okay. So I'll take it that what he talked about is interesting, because when you talk about third party, you outsource, right? Firstly, you have to make sure you have an agreement, and that agreement has to be airtight to the extent that it can be, right? Secondly, within the agreement, you got to educate your third party provider what they can and cannot do. You clearly need to spell it out, right? If you are in the regulated industry, right, which is FI, then under Singapore law, there is a whole concept paper by the Monetary Authority of Singapore that talks about what are the do's and don'ts when you're dealing with third parties and who is held accountable, right? You need to have the right to audit clause inside there, where you need to get an independent third party to go to your service provider and audit them and give you a report as to what controls they have in place, right? When they're either collecting, using, disposing, or storing personal data or personal identifiable information. Okay, they are very, very clear under Singapore data protection laws. You can outsource any amount of work that you want. Ultimately, I'm going to come after the company that has outsourced it. The accountability stops at you, the buck stops at you, right? You cannot say otherwise that you don't know. And even within the outsourced team, who are the people that are processing the data? Who are the people that are collecting the data? Who are the people that are executing the data, right? Everything has to be segregated. And like what Mike mentioned earlier, it only has to be on a need-to basis. So if that person in that team doesn't need to know, they don't need to know. So they are very, very strict about it, especially when you talk about regulated industry. So Mike, you can answer the balance now.
Agree with what you said. In the West, it's very similar. All I would add is before any agreements are even drafted, have conversations, preempt this again with your risk analysis, conduct what what we describe as a data protection impact assessment. All right, so research the company. You know, are they suffering data breaches every year like clockwork? You probably don't want to work with them. In that case, stop. That's one way to protect yourself from the risks with third parties. The other is engage with them, show them proofs of audits, right? Do they have an SOC2 audit? Have they gone through? Have they been externally audited for, so you're working, your client, or you are working with a client that manages health data, or payments for health data? You know, have they been audited by the US HIPAA? Have they been audited to be compliant with PCI DSS, Payment Card Information System? So there's a lot you can do beforehand before even getting to that point of exchanging of data. But as Sanjeev pointed out, if everything looks good or it's within that risk appetite, risk tolerance that you've established, then yes, you move forward with contractual protections, and also in there the consequences thereof, right? So protect yourself that way. Don't always just rely on the consequences that the law may lay down. You can put consequences yourself in there as well.
I think the only other thing that I want to add to what Mike said is that when you do an audit, please go down to the site with your eyes open, not with your eyes closed. So just before today's session, right, Indrajit ma'am, I went and did an audit for a professional accounting firm. I won't mention the name of the firm because all of you are CAs. And if I say the slightest clue, you will guess the name. It's not the Big Four. Okay, it's a second-tier firm, international professional accounting firm. Okay, so I went and did a site audit. Not today, yesterday, because today is holiday in Singapore. And I help them in their data protection documents. So I was teaching them how to write up the privacy policy, internal, external, etc., etc. Then I asked the guy, I said, this is your corporate office, right? Can I just take a look at it for the fun of it? So I walked around. In the entire office, ma'am, there was personal data lying around everywhere. People's salary, people's medical, director's passport number, local, foreign, and the guy tells me everything is secure. I said, may God bless you. That's all I had to say. Yes, they had biometric access to the door, but I said, you cannot stop the regulator from entering your office. The guy says, oh, I just am going out for take a coffee. The paper, he covers it this way. I just went there, I opened the paper, I see Indrajit's salary is this, this is a phone number, this is a date of birth, this is the medical problem that she has. This is a professional accounting firm, COPSEC firm, dealing in data of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people. And they don't even have a shredding machine. They tear the paper and they throw in the dustbin. That's how their mindset is. So to answer Mr. Jitendra's question, please go down to the site with eyes open and don't tell them you're coming. What happens is that when we do audits, we tell everybody, I'm coming to your house today for dinner. Then you will make the best meal, not for me. Then don't do the audit. It's a waste of time. My philosophy is very simple. Every client of mine, I go unannounced. Because you need to be operationally ready. COVID came, it did not tell you. COVID disappeared, it didn't tell you. Now COVID is making a comeback, it's telling you. Enough of my storytelling.
All
Over to
good.
you.
Well, what you described from a physical site inspection and what you witnessed, it's actually common also in the IT side of things with networks. You know, everyone thinks that, you know, once you're behind the firewall, it's this, you know, magical walled
Exactly.
garden and everything inside we can just do whatever we want with it. Or it can be access can be open to everybody. You know, once you're past the firewall and you got through the first checks, all is good. Well, that's not how it works. It's not how it should work, I should say. And I guess one way to sum this up actually is a saying from the cybersecurity side: trust and then verify, right? So you go and you use automated tools or you review contracts and you see stuff online about it or whatnot. Yes, you know, trust your tools, trust what you're seeing, but then verify, right? If you don't verify that, then you set yourself up to be, well, the fool that gets stuck holding the bag.
Can I just add something, Indrajit ma'am? Because I am just laughing because
Yes, sir.
no, because he said trust but verify. So
Yes.
my rule is very simple to all CAs. In life, trust nobody except your mother. Because your mother will tell you this is your father. That's it. That's my simple rule in life. Trust no one. Verify everything. The day you start trusting, you will be game, set, and match. Like cricket, clean bowled. Okay, Virat Kohli can tell you that. Because it is absolutely in shambles. People think that, you know, you have like what Mike mentioned, firewall, security, this, that, garba garbu, you put in all this. I don't need to be a techie to hack your system. Believe me, I can do it in a split second. So I will just share one simple story. Give me 2 minutes, Indrajit ma'am. It's very simple. What I did was this experiment where I made a replica of an Eiffel Tower. I went to China, I made 500 pieces of it. Okay, and I put a hidden camera inside there. And what I did was, I then distributed this free in the Central Business District of Singapore. And everybody decided to take it because it's free.
Yeah.
They loved it. And after that, what they did was they went back to the office, they put it at their desk. And whoever who took it, I followed those people. And then I could easily see what password they typed, what they were doing. I did not need to break your firewall. You basically invited me to your house to see what you are doing. Some people, they take it, this my phone, they put it right smack here, and then they're typing. And I'm like, wow, that's very nice. That's your bank account number. That's your password. Excellent. You just gave me, and that time there was no 2FA. The banks only came up with 2FA later. I said, that is a wonderful way. So I don't need to be an IT geek to hack your system. I need two things. All CAs know this, common sense. CS. You call yourself CA, I call myself CS. Common sense. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us and sharing so many experiences with us. And next question I want to take for from your side for career direction. That question from Neerav Parekh. How a chartered accountant can pursue career in data protection field?
Oh, I love this guy. Mike, this is our first student. Welcome to Inderjit Kaur. I love this gentleman. Okay, just to share, by profession, I'm a forensic accountant and I'm a management accountant. I moved into data privacy by chance. Okay, so to answer the gentleman's question, if you are really keen on data privacy, you should first determine in your mind what is it that you want. And I think India has got institutions that talk about this, and they got examination. But don't just do an exam, because to me, an exam only tells me that you can pass on a given day. That means I memorize everything on the given day. I give it. Okay. So he has taken a very good choice. He can talk to me privately if he wants, but first understand what you want and then take international certification and then gain experience, because that will bring you to a career that will be fulfilling. Nothing beats experience. And I'm sure Nanda Kumar sir will tell you that. All the esteemed speakers at the start will tell you the white hair counts for everything. Okay, Mike, you want to answer the balance of the question?
Sure. My balance on that would be mindset, right? So as accountants, I'm sure there are clients or people coming along when they try to float some books in front of you that are like, oh yeah, this is all legit, this is good, this is what we're doing or whatnot, and as accountants or forensic accountants, it's you're looking at it, you're like, these numbers don't jive, right? Like, how are you getting 8%, net profit or gross profit like clockwork every single year? Like, looks like someone just, that add 8% to each of the numbers, right? So it's more like a forecast rather than an actual picture or historic aspect, right? So when you're looking, transfer those skills, right? Don't think of when you're going into privacy that you have to start over, right? These analytical skills when you're going into privacy will be helpful, right? So that starts the mindset, and then further expand on your mindset of, I'm looking at this information, how would I use this information to take someone's identity or learn something about someone that isn't, on the sheet, right? Like, see on these YouTube videos, right? It says, tell me you own a Mancoot cat or a Mancoot cat without telling me you own a Mancoot cat, right? So use the analytical skills to figure out, what could I do with this information? And that as a privacy professional, that's what you need to be doing every day. When someone comes to you and says, hey, we want to roll out this new product, or we want to roll out this new enhancement to a particular product, look at how this can be used by bad actors or nefarious people, whether internal or external. How can this be used against the customer, the user, or how can this be, potentially weaponized by state actors? As we're seeing a lot more involvement from state actors in the news. So, yeah, mindset. Start with the mindset up here. You're not starting over. Vast majority of your skills are going to be transferable. And as Sanjeev said, fine, get an international certification. And if you're going to go and find a trainer or a mentor, look at their recommendations, their reviews, and look into their programs to see if they will teach you how to operationalize what it is that you have learned, or what it is that they will teach you, right? And knowledge without the ability to operationalize that is, well, it's a book on your bookshelf. It doesn't mean you actually know how to do anything with what it is that you've learned.
Well said, Mike.
Thank
So
you.
the guy is on the right track. If I can convert from being an accountant to privacy, I'm sure he can do it, because I'm the benchmark of the stupidity.
Hey, stop that.
Okay. Next question.
Okay. So before taking the session further, I want to take a last question
Yes.
from Yogesh Deshpande. How non-disclosure agreement can protect data? Because
Oh.
court litigation take lots of time to settle the case.
Wow, that's a very good question, Mike.
Well, relying on a non-disclosure alone would not be my first recommendation, just simply because that in the West, especially right now, wartime or whatnot, it was, the saying was loose lips sink ships, right? So you got this non-disclosure agreement, but let's say someone gets a little too lubricated, if you will, at a party or a work party, or maybe at a conference where there's alcohol served, right? They're going to be potentially sharing more than what they should. So you have this non-disclosure agreement in place, but that doesn't stop the action, right? It just gives you something to rely upon, that once it's out there, be like, hey, he wasn't supposed to say that. But once it's out there, what do? Right? There's no technical controls. There's nothing there to, as a to prevent things going further. So I would say an NDA, or really any written agreement, really should be your last line of defense. Now, if all you have is the NDA, I guess make sure that the consequences are severe enough that if they leak the information, that it motivates them to be very cautious and careful about what it is that they say, or very careful about putting themselves in compromising positions where they may leak something unknowingly, or in a position where they'll have forgotten that they've leaked that information. You have anything to add there, Sanjeev?
Yeah, so I think you hit it correct, because his question is, NDA is only one part of it, and to take it to courts, right, Mike, to give you an idea about India, and no disrespect, but they got too many cases going on, and the judicial system can't possibly handle everything, right? By the time the case reaches the court, the guy will be gone, right? So NDA, like what Mike said, is your last line of defense. So that's why whenever I talk to clients, I said, do you even know who the service provider is? So I have a recent case where I'm doing work for a company. Now, this company is collecting data of dead people, dead cancer patients. Okay, so these are patients who have died because of cancer. They are collecting the data for research. Now, you imagine in your minds, the family is going through a grieving period. I have taken the data of Sanjeev, who has just passed away because of cancer. Then that data now is compromised. I have signed a non-disclosure. I've got all the agreements on the planet with my service provider. Is that going to help? The answer is no. Because the grieving family is already in grief. So what I tell my client, did you even go and see who is that service provider? Do they even have an office? Nowadays, everybody operates on co-working space, virtual, blah, what, don't know from where. Nothing exists. It's all in the air. What is the reputation of that company? Who are their past clients? Have you even done a due diligence? And all you CAs are very good at that. Have you verified? And if the client tells you come on Monday 4 o'clock, you don't go on Monday 4 o'clock, you go on Friday 4 o'clock to double check whether really is that place exists or not, or he has just made up the place for your visit on Monday. Right? So that's why I say CA is good, but CS is more important. CS is not company secretary, but common sense. Okay.
Your point there about who is the vendor or the supplier is it's great advice. I also would advise people to try and go a little deeper, right? Ultimately, who is the end provider, right? We know that, or it's estimated that 2/3 of the internet flows through Amazon in one way, in one form or another. So is this person just using Amazon services behind their stuff, and it's not actually anything in their real control, or are they using a vendor that's using AWS or Azure or Google Cloud in the background, right? So sometimes you have to run down this chain to find out who ultimately has your data and who has access to it. It's sometimes more often than not, it's not just the vendor that you're working with.
Absolutely right, Mike. So in this case, my client tells me it's the cloud.
Yeah.
Because they have no idea it's in the cloud.
And what are clouds mostly made of?
Yeah, it's made of cloud. And you know where is the data? The cloud is hosted in China. In China, data protection laws are absolutely different. We can have another session on that.
Yeah.
But okay, I won't talk about that. It's just different. Okay. So let's move on.
Well, thank you so much, speakers, for answering the questions. And I think we should take the session forward with your presentations and knowledge you're going to share. So I request all the participants, please add your questions. We will take at the end of the session. Rest questions we will take at the end of the session. So please continue.
Okay, so now I have got about 45 minutes, right? Plus minus.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. Okay, so now it's my turn and my buddy Mike will support me.
Well, I'm not sure if I set you up very well. I think I chewed into some of your Q&A time, so hopefully
it's okay, no problems. So can you all see my slides?
Sure can.
Yes.
Okay, wait, just 1 second. Let me
started in the presentation mode.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get that part done. Just 1 minute.
Yes.
That's the problem with okay. Yeah, see, that's the problem with senior citizens. Okay, so this is clean sheets. Okay, so now we'll come to very simple thing. I'm not going to repeat what Mike has said. I'm just going to share with you a couple of key slides and talk through it. Okay, there are about, I think, 60, 70 slides here. So it's impossible for me to go through in 45 minutes. We had a very good discussion. So now I'm making you all hungry. Okay, this is virtual popcorn. So Indrajit Kaur, ma'am, you can have the popcorn. It's very tasty. It's with jaggery and, everything else. So what does this popcorn, what does popcorn extra mean? Popcorn extra means basically when you got a data, you need to first be able to establish whether is this data personal data or personal identifiable information. So what we call PD or PII. Personal data or personal identifiable information. Okay. So you need to ask this question. Is this personal data? If it's not personal data, don't bother. Because we are talking about data protection here. We are not talking about confidentiality. We are not talking about any other thing. Right? And next question, is it an organization? Because data protection is concerned with organizations collecting, using, disposing, and storing personal data. If you never learn anything from me and Mike today, my fellow friends from CA, please understand this acronym CUDS. How the organization collects, uses, dispose, and store personal data. That's it. That's data protection. Okay, in a nutshell. So, is the organization doing that? Then, like what our esteemed speakers have said in the introduction, what is the purpose of them taking the data? Why do I take the data of Mike? Why do I need to know his passport number, his salary, his blood type, his orientation, his whatever? What is the purpose? Is it personal or business? If Mike's mother-in-law wants his personal data, tough luck. That he has to give. He has got no choice. But if I want it, he has a choice. Right? Next important thing. So that's the POP. What is the C? Consent. Did the individual give the consent? And when I say consent, means explicit consent. Okay. Was the organization open? That means, do they have a privacy policy? A lot of people are mistaken between privacy policy, right? They thought privacy policy means only outside. There is two. One is external, one is internal. Internal is for your internal stakeholders. External is for the world to see how you as an organization CUDS personal data or PII. Did you notify the individual that you are using his or her personal data for this purpose? Mike, Indrajit, I need your personal data because there is a lucky draw tomorrow. The first prize is $1 million US. I need your name, your address, your date of birth, your passport number. But do I really need this information? That is excessive collection. Okay. Of course, EX means exception. Just like in audit, all CAs know 80-20 rule. You audit 80%, 20% you live with it. Exception is, if I am doing a talk now at your institute, let's say in Delhi, and I got a heart attack, please don't come and ask me, Sanjeev, do I have your consent to call an ambulance? I'm going to die already. You please call the ambulance. You don't need my consent. Okay? Or it's in the case of national security. I say that I'm going to, not that I'm going to do it, I'm going to blow up an airport. It's a case of national security. I do not need your consent. I can complain. Okay. So please, if I ever visit India, visit your institute, anything happen to me, don't ask my consent. Please call the doctor. Okay. Don't wait for it. Was it transferred or disclosed? If you are an employee of your company, you have the right to ask your company, how are they handling your personal data? Did they transfer to any other country? In this case, the example that I gave Mike earlier of the client that I'm working with, the data of the cancer patients that have passed away, they did not tell the deceased family that the data is being transferred to China. That is a clear violation in every aspect, because you're taking the medical record of this deceased person. The consent given was to take the data to do analytical studies to help other cancer patients. That data was to be resident in the Republic of Singapore. But because the cost of, hosting in Singapore is so expensive, they decide to host it in China. And they did not inform the deceased or the family. It's a clear breach of data protection regulation. Okay. Retention. How long you keep the data. You know, we all love to keep things. Even though the jacket cannot fit you, the shirt cannot fit you, the pen doesn't work, you will still keep. Why? Because we love to hoard things. And the only reason why you should keep things if there is a legal or business reason to do so. If not, don't keep it. Okay. Next, A, accuracy. Is the data that you have accurate? Did you give the data subject the chance for access and correction? Last but not least, S, was the data secure? Half of the firms, they do not secure the data. They leave it anyhow for everybody to take a look. They follow this, what Mike talked about, access controls. They love to follow this thing called grandfather principle. Mike had it, I should have it. John had it, I should have it. Doesn't matter whether I need it, I just want it. Okay? So this slide, very important. Popcorn extra. Okay? Enjoy the popcorns. Mike, it's too early for you. You cannot enjoy the popcorn because it's morning.
Hey, at least the sun is up, man. Come on. Sun was down when we started, but it's up now. And while I have your attention, a common thread that people are probably seeing here, I just want to point out and make it very clear. One of the principles of data protection and being a privacy officer is transparency. Right, so we talked about the organization. Is it open? Is it have notices? Is the person aware of the purpose? Right. So, am I aware? Are they aware that the data is being transferred? And, how long are you keeping my data for? Right. Am I? Do I have access and am I able to make corrections? Right. What are my rights? Right. So, transparency is also a very huge thing here. So the movement of information is not one way.
Absolutely correct. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the next two slides are the entire summary that you need to know about data protection. Okay, and this is done by me. Okay, so I'm happy to share with all people, but please do not, take it and classify it as your work eventually. Okay. It's a very simple PowerPoint slide, talks about the 9 steps to safe handling of personal data. Exactly what Mike talked about. Can you look at the middle? It says here what? CUDS. You will keep hearing me saying these terms till the time we end this talk. This is the fundamental of data protection. How the organization collect, use, disclose, and store personal data. The other acronym that you need to remember, boys and girls, is APSR. A stands for assess, P stands for protect, APS. S stands for sustain. R stands for respond. So how you assess the risk in relation to collection, how you assess the risk in relation to usage, how you protect the collected data, how you respond in the event of a data breach, how do you sustain your privacy compliance program. And most organizations, ladies and gentlemen, you will be very proud to know that they fail in which stage? Collect, use, disclose, or store. Mike, you want to give it a chance since you cleared all the exams of privacy profession?
Not quite all of them. There's still a few on the list.
May I guess, Mike?
The toss up. I'm gonna say between collect and use. I find people over collect and decide on a whim to use something different. Oh, we have the data. Let's use it for this while we have it, and violate that purpose.
You are spot on correct. You're 50% correct. Most of the time is collect and disclose. Organizations are very poor. And the other area that organizations fail miserably, ladies and gentlemen, is respond. They are like headless chickens walking around. When there is a data breach, they are absolutely clueless as to what to do. Okay. So these 9 steps, it talks about collect for a purpose. What is the purpose that you're collecting the data? Why do you need it? If there is no reason, business or legal, don't collect. Don't just collect for the sake of collecting. Now in Singapore, in our job application forms, you cannot ask any Singaporean for their national identification number, which is similar to your Aadhaar card in India. You cannot, Mike, it is against the law. You can only verify. You can only take the last 4 digits on the paper until the time you decide to give him or her employment. Then you can ask for the copy of the national identification number, the card itself.
Right.
So you can see here in my name, Sanjeev, son of Gerald Gataki, you can see the last 4 digits, right? This is my national identification number, last 4 digits. That's about it. This is what the organizations in Singapore can ask. They cannot get the first 4 digits in front. It's against the law. They cannot ask for my passport number. They cannot ask for my income tax number. They cannot ask for my provident fund number. All this before they used to collect. Okay. Next, notify the data subject. Did they tell me exactly why they are collecting the data, the purpose, and did they tell me, notify me of the purpose? So if I'm a company, I collected the resume or the professional profile, I then circulate it to my group of companies. I'm in violation of data protection laws because I did not tell you, the data subject, that I'm going to do it. So it's very, very important you notify, get consent. Okay. And the consent, if it's verbal, make sure later you document it. Because I say, you say, grandma say, doesn't work in the court of law. Okay. Next, ensure that the data is accurate. Because having incorrect data is going to ruin someone's life. Access and correction rights. everyone has the right for them to correct their personal data. You must give them that opportunity. You cannot charge them money for it. Okay. How you handle complaints. And again, in Europe and Singapore, there are laws that govern by what time frame you need to report to the regulators if there is a data breach. Next point, if you're going to transfer data overseas, you need to have proper agreements. You need to have corporate binding rules. You need to have many other things. And I think Mike can talk to you all day on this, because US and Europe, they had a lot of things that happened. Everything went out of the window. And now we are back to drawing board.
Back to the drawing board for possibly the third time now.
Exactly.
New privacy shield. Max Schrems has already lashed out, basically saying you didn't change anything. So it'll be interesting what happens now.
Exactly. Especially when you're transferring data to countries like China, to Russia, or any of the ex-Soviet states. Retention. How long you are keeping the data for? Just because I like to keep, I keep. Last but not least, here, number 6 point, protecting the personal data. How did you protect it? So this slide, right, ladies and gentlemen, it encapsulates everything about what Mike has been talking about and I've been talking about. Okay, it's a beautiful slide. I take pride in this. I love this slide. And normally I charge for this, but I'm giving it for free. Okay, so let me move on. Haha. This is the next one. This also might talk about CIA. Confidentiality, integrity, accessibility. 10 steps to ensure security of personal and business data. Again, it is all down to CS, common sense. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, young and old, you will be glad to know that common sense is not so common. That's the problem in today's world. So Mike talked about access limitation. Only let people know what they need to know. If you don't need to know, don't need to know. Have proper confidential and non-disclosure agreements. I think Mr. Jitendra or someone brought up that point, right? Use of office equipment. Office equipment is for office work, not personal work. Nowadays, there's a lot of confusion between office and housework because we have got this thing called what? Work from home policy, work from the beach policy. Everyone is confused because they don't know where they're working from. The mobile phone becomes the office come personal. When you resign, the company wants to access your phone. Do you give them the right to access your phone? What do you think, Mike?
Sorry?
The phone, the mobile phone, right?
Yeah.
Is my phone. The SIM card inside is mine. I'm paying for the bill for the SIM card. Inside this phone, I have got company information and my personal. I have resigned from the company. Do you as the company have the right to view what is in my phone? That's my question.
Right to view, I would say no. But I might have the right in contract, if I was smart, to witness you delete company information.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, young and old, let me give you the answer to my question. Under Singapore law, the company reserves the right to view the data that is on your phone with the sole purpose to delete company information. Okay, Singapore law favors the employer, not the employee. So I always tell my clients, please put it in the contract with your employee that if you're going to use your personal phone for business, the company reserves the right. If not, give them another phone. Separate. I have got 5 phones, Mike, by the way.
I thought it was
Okay.
crazy to have 2.
No, I got 5. So when I go, I have a handbag with me like the ladies. Because I segregate. Office work is office work, personal is personal. Movement of confidential information. Please have basic encrypted thumb drives, not the thumb drives that you buy from the street. Because you're talking about personal data. And today, data is king.
On that, I actually have an interesting side point. So I was talking about the making sure that it's encrypted. Since data protection involves also the integrity and the availability or accessibility of the data, not all thumb drives are suited to go through X-ray machines. Some of them will actually be damaged by X-rays. So you have to also choose what is going to protect the data from damage and the device from damage as well. Back to you.
Perfect. Then you talk about security counters. So again, in your offices, you got in-tray, out-trays. Please don't put data lying around everywhere, especially personal. Have a clean desk policy, number 6. Make sure your staff understand what it means. Clean desk means clean desk, not khichdi. Khichdi means in India, it's a food, it's all mashed up, right? And having it all over the place. Hardware, software, make sure you have the latest versions. You're not using pirated. You have installed it properly. The upgrades. And Zoom loves to do that. Whenever you do a call, they will decide they want to upgrade their things. And then they will screw you up upside down. Right? Just like Microsoft. Then the next point, social media. Be very careful what you put on social media. I don't know why, right, Mike? The new generation, which I call the strawberry generation, they love to put everything of themselves on the social media. They think that they're very trendy. They don't realize that by you putting that information on social media, I can do black magic, I can do magic just by having your photo. I can basically do a social engineering and I can tell you your entire life story. That's why they all are not owning their cameras. You see, Indrajit was owning a camera, then she decided, better I stay away from Sanjeev and Mike, I better off my camera. Because if he takes the photo, he will tell me everything about me. Just kidding. Mobile devices.
Or we'll put you in a very interesting musical just for fun.
Yeah. Mobile devices. All of you have mobile phones, right? And you all always change every few months, right? Because CAs get highly paid, so they change phones. What do you do with your old phone? Your old laptops? Throw it away. So what I do, just to share with you all, my CA friends, on Saturday and Sundays when I got nothing to do once a month, I go around dustbin shopping. So I go to different offices, condominiums, I rack their dustbins. I go and dig and see what personal data I can collect. And whole and behold, Mr. Mike, don't fall off your chair. I find phones, I find laptops, I find thumb drives, I find passport. People throwing away their passport in the dustbin.
Oh,
Who throws away a laptop in a dustbin? Please, guys, if you want to dispose any electronic device, the only way to eradicate the data is to take a truck and run over the computing device.
Well, there are some flash drives that you wouldn't think it, but can actually survive being run over by a truck or survive some very
Yes, correct.
interesting abuse.
Correct. I
Even
agree, Mike.
laptops. Yeah.
I agree. By and large, I think you are 90% we are covered. I mean, you can only do so much. The other way is to incinerate the thing. Okay, because the laptop that I'm using now, this I bought it, and you know, Mike, in this laptop, I had personal data of 500 people. This is a brand new Asus laptop that I have, ZenBook 14. I bought it from the shop. I had personal data of people inside.
You bought it brand new, like in a sealed box?
Yes.
Oh, they recycled the hard drives.
Absolutely right. So my CA friends, please don't throw away devices. Okay. Whenever any one of you visits Singapore, the invitation is open to everybody in this. Please call me and I'll bring you to my sightseeing tour to collect rubbish with me. Okay. External storage devices, please be very careful what you use. Okay. So this is this slide. Okay. So you need to let me catch my breath because I'm suffering from a very bad flu. But these are the 9 questions. I think someone, Indrajit, asked this question just now about outsourcing, right? So these are the 9 questions that the management should ask when outsourcing. Okay. Who are the outsourcing organizations with which we are contract and where are they located? Again, common sense questions, right? But like I said, common sense is not so common. Precisely what data are we sending to and receiving from the outsourcing organization? Okay. I'm not going to go through all, but you can read it. It says, what data protection clauses do we have? So I met a client last week. They said, what for, Sanjeev? So much work. Don't need to do, leave it. I said, it's okay with me. Tomorrow when there's a data breach, you will pay me more money to solve your problems. Right? This question, very important. What process are in place to monitor our outsourcing organization? Very interesting question, no, Mike? What process are in place to monitor? Do you really know what your outsourcing organization is doing? All of you know what your spouse is doing, what your children are doing, what your boss is doing. You all are very interested. But what your outsourcing person is doing, you all are not interested. Okay? So just a snippet to share with you all. Okay? So compliance, what do we do? Again, you all can read it. You know, I'm not going to spend time on this. I just want to talk about, yeah, this one. This is a very interesting quote. A cloud without a clear and strong data protection is not the sort of cloud we need. This is from the European Justice Commissioner. What do you think, Mike? Good quote, no?
Very, yep.
So everybody, my CA friends, when you say it's in the cloud, a cloud without a clear and strong data protection is not the sort of cloud that we need. Okay, please take note of it. Another one. The brave new world of cloud computing offers many benefits provided that the privacy and security risks are recognized and effectively minimized. Please, this is from the country where Mike comes from, Canada. I believe Ontario is somewhere there, I don't know where, but it's a beautiful statement. It says where the privacy and security risks are recognized and effectively minimized. It does not say eliminate, because you cannot eliminate. There will always be a certain amount of risk that will remain. If you say that you can take away all the risks, that means you close shop. Okay?
Well,
Okay.
a little side thing. Even when you close up shop, there's still risk to manage. Like you touched on, disposing of those devices.
Exactly.
The risk does not stop when you close up shop.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I know I am running out of time, but just give me this last slide and then we will take questions. 10 steps to implement personal data protection system. So this is what I do on a daily basis. I eat, sleep, and dream this. This is like my baby every day. There got to be someone in charge. The buck has to stop at somebody. Right? You cannot say fairy tale, Cinderella and the Cell of No. Somebody has to answer. That means the data protection officer. Be familiar with the laws. Ignorance of the law is not going to get you away. Okay. Then the rest you can read in all these 10 steps. And this one, I'm going to ask a question and I know Mike will get the answer right. And I hope he gets it right because this is a question in the CIPM exam that I got it before. Right? A lot of times, right, Mike, they say that how do you implement personal data protection system? What is the number one thing you need to do? You need to educate and train your staff. Does education come first or does training come first? Which one comes first?
Ooh.
It's an exam question. This comes in the exam.
I think so.
It does.
Education come first.
Okay, Indrajit says education comes first. Mike?
Yeah, I'd have to say education as well.
Spot on correct. You need to educate people. Your best defense, ladies and gentlemen, is education. If you do not educate people, and education has to be competency-based, periodically. Please don't do a training and say, yeah, educated, that's it today, that's it, data protection over. Doesn't work that way. Okay? Because remember, in life, what you know is what you know. What you don't know is what you don't know. What lies between what you know and don't know will wipe you out. Okay, what you know is what you know. What you don't know, you don't know. The in between the two is going to wipe you. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share. So the rest you all can read. The things are, this one is important. I have to end off with Canada because I must applaud my friend Mike to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. You got to be highly passionate about privacy to talk about it. But this is a very good quote. Ultimately, the sound life cycle management of personal information is intimately tied to an organization's reputation and branding. Business relationships legal liability, customer loyalty, and business growth. Beautifully said. I got to hand it to the Canadians. They are slightly more intelligent than the Americans. Right, Mike?
I refuse to comment. No.
Oh, come on,
Yes.
Mike. You got two old men in America fighting. Come on, Mike. Canadians are way better than them. Okay?
I will admit
So-
there are definitely things that we do get right. Yes.
Okay. So with that, I will. Yeah.
Oh, more
stop and-
Canadian quotes. I think Sanjeev wants to move.
No, I just want to, yeah, the rest I think they can read it. So all this I have shared with Amit sir. I think you all can download all the things I have shared. Okay. So, okay, so I will leave it to questions because that's more exciting. Yeah. So any questions?
Before we jump into the questions, I do want to add one thing about education. Don't do
Yeah,
education
please.
don't do education for the sake of education or for the sake of ticking a box. Oh, we have an education program, right? People can learn and whatever, right? No, it's got to be you have to be very much involved in it. All stakeholders and departments should be involved in it, in developing it, and it also needs to be fresh, right? So as you know, this is about staying ahead of the evolving data protection, right? So it also means staying ahead of different threats and stuff that come along. So you have to educate people on new tactics, new ways of protecting stuff, and also find new ways of delivering the information, right? Because the danger with education and training programs is that people become numb, right? It's just, okay, so this is their quarterly privacy training thing and they clock out for an hour or whatnot, right? Because they're a senior position, or they've put in last 5 years and they've heard this 15 times already, right? So it's, you got to keep it engaging, keep it fresh, keep it pertinent, and keep people involved. Otherwise, like I said, it's become desensitized and then clock out when you're trying to further educate.
Yeah, so excellent point. So just one last thing, Indrajit, before I take questions. This is a video, compliments of Deloitte, and all you people can watch it at your leisure. This is a superb video, and I give credit to Deloitte for putting it up. It tells you exactly what to do, not to do in a data breach situation. What not to do in a data breach situation. Okay, you can watch it at your leisure. Okay, I'm not going because it's quite a long video, about 15 minutes. So please watch it. It's there. The last thing I want to say to what Mike said is that one of the things that we do, right? And Mike said about education awareness, it has got to be fresh. It has got to be relevant. So because this is a virtual class and this is our first webinar, I really hope I get another opportunity together with Mike. I actually have a board game in privacy and cybersecurity where you play the game and have gamified it and you learn the fundamental concepts. And I'm hoping one day Amit sir will give me that chance. I hope so. I don't know how well or how bad I did today, but let's see. So now it's over to Indrajit Kaur for the 1,000 questions that she has.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing
No
your
problem.
immense knowledge with all of us. And now we are going to take the questions, fresh questions. So we have question from Deepak. He's from Mumbai. If I store my data on the cloud, what precaution do I need to take to protect data?
Very good question, Mike. You want to give it a shot? Easy.
Okay. I guess the first way to protect it is be selective of what you put up on the cloud, right? A lot of people like to have their data accessible with them anywhere they go, but do you actually need this piece of information, right? So prioritize what you put up there. And for as boring and dry as they can be, read the terms of service agreements, right? So, for example, some cloud solutions out there will prohibit you from using any sort of encryption or other technique to obfuscate the data. And they say that you're not allowed to do this because they need to be able to convert the data from one form to another in order to make it efficient and cost effective for them to store your data. Interpret that however you wish. So those are two things. And when you are storing it there, if you're permitted to, or if you want to just say, no, sorry, cloud provider, I'm going to encrypt it. There's lots of tools out there available for you to be able to encrypt your data before storing it somewhere. And then you can also have those tools on your device to decrypt it when you later retrieve it. What else is there?
I just add one more thing, Mike.
Yeah.
I mean, what Mike said was correct. I mean, to me, try to limit what you put on the cloud and try not to put anything, because I will share another story. My cousin passed away. He moved to Canada for a better life. Unfortunately, he passed away in Canada in a road accident. He was working with Bank of America and he lives in Toronto. Okay. And his digital life is still on the internet. Remember, you will physically die, but you will never die on the net. There are ways to wipe yourself out of the net, but it costs a lot of money. And the best people to do that are the Israelis and the Russians. And by no means, I think you want to go and contact Mr. Vladimir Putin or Mr. Netanyahu to help you in that department. So, my advice is try not to use the cloud, because I'm not saying it's no good, but I trust nobody. My data, I put under my pillow. If I have my say, I put in a thumb drive, I keep it with me. I feel safe. I don't like to put things in the cloud. Like families, they love to put their photo, this, that, birthday, anniversary, wedding, everything put in the cloud. Then everybody has access to everything. How do you know the cloud service provider is not doing anything behind the scenes? You have absolutely no idea. I had a friend of mine who went on a honeymoon. The honeymoon put on the cloud. He said, I want to share with my friends. Guys, what is wrong with you? Your honeymoon is your private matter. But again, there are people who are crazy. So I know people like to be socially, but trust me, the world is not as what it seems it is. The digital era, and you all are in the digital space, it's going to change the very way we live and we die. Believe me, COVID has taught us a lot and is still teaching us. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Indrajit has got the next question.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. So we will move forward to our current AI. One question from Dhawla, Deepak Harjiwani Bhaiwala from Mumbai. How can I use ChatGPT to protect my data?
Nice. This is for Mike. I don't like ChatGPT. Mike, all yours.
How do I use ChatGPT to protect my personal data? Short answer is you can't. And do not use ChatGPT. Like most AI tools, like even even if you're not using AI, like we use if you're using Grammarly, right? These tools, the data is retained, right? So it's added to the model and is used for further training models, right? So do not use ChatGPT for anything personal. I have seen examples of where people are actually asking ChatGPT to plan their vacations and give them an itinerary and such, and they're putting in there where they're going to go, how long they're going to be there for. They've inputted even, their names and hobbies, interests, right? So all this information becomes part of ChatGPT, and it's in plain text. It's not protected, and it's used in analysis, and it will likely end up getting leaked later on. Well, that vacation information I haven't actually seen leaked yet. An example of how it could be leaked is that ChatGPT just pulls that information in relation to another question and is part of an answer. Louise, I can't remember her last name, the author of The Privacy Whisperer, for fun, she went into ChatGPT and said, tell me about, and she put her name, and then she said, and here is the LinkedIn profile for the person. The answer that ChatGPT gave was actually about someone else that had the same or similar name, and the information was 100% false. It had absolutely zero anything to do with the LinkedIn profile that ChatGPT gave it. So once you put that information in there, or as we talk about putting it out in the cloud and social media, once it gets scraped and is part of these tools, it can be used in a mind-boggling number of ways. So to my knowledge, there is no way to protect ChatGPT or your data within ChatGPT or pretty much any of the AI tools out there.
I will second that, because I don't like ChatGPT. I think it's taking away the intelligence of the human. Ultimately, there has to be human intervention. I'm not against AI, but I think there are certain ethical decisions that have to be taken, right? And it's not easy. Exactly what Mike said just now. You type in, you get something that is not right, right? And I think there is a big debate going on in the world between AI and business ethics. Where do you draw the line? That's another fascinating topic, which is for another day. If not, Mike will kill me.
Well, I have a short bit to touch on the ethics side of things. So, say Sanjeev Inderjeet, sorry. Let's say I come to you and I'm like, okay, I'm tired of this. I don't want to deal with my books anymore. I know they're a mess. Anyone looks at them, they're not going to want to touch me with a 10-foot pole. But here's my books. Modify them, cook them, do whatever you want. Make me look perfect to the tax man, right? And to the government, right?
Mm.
Well, what are you going to say to me? You're going to tell me, sorry, no, I'm not going to break my ethics. I'm not going to cook your books and misrepresent you. Well, ChatGPT was recently tricked into creating and embedding malware inside what was known as steganography. So basically, inside plain text, someone was able to hide a malware program that was not detected by antivirus tools or security tools or whatnot. So you've touched on a very good point of having the human intervention aspect there and having ethics, right? So there was nothing there with ChatGPT to say, no, I'm not going to embed malware for you. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with that. So ChatGPT doesn't necessarily have any ethics. Actually, just thought of another interesting one. There was a gentleman in Europe that recently took his own life. He was depressed, and he was speaking with not ChatGPT, but a similar AI program that actually just began developing a personality when talking with him over the course of 2 years. And in one of the messages, the AI told the person that we will be in heaven together. So the challenges of AI and the influences of AI are becoming very, very scary, in my opinion. So there, yeah.
Mike, don't scare me. I need to sleep. It's like 11:10 in Singapore. I mean, if I cannot sleep, I'm going to call you and bug the daylights out of you.
Fine by me. The sun's up here. I got plenty of hours to keep you awake.
Okay, next question.
Okay. Thank you, Michael and Sanjeev sir. Okay, next question from Mahesh Thapa. He's from Delhi. He's asking what need to be ensured from our side before placing or storing any data on cloud.
Did you say insured or assured?
Our side. When
That
I am
means I
going to
think-
place or storing any data on cloud, so what I have to be ensured, what I need to be take care.
Okay, so the question is, what should he do or his company do before they put the data in the cloud, right? Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the very basic is first, like what Mike had mentioned and I mentioned, you need to know what is it that you want to put in the cloud. So what they call this thing called privacy impact assessment, right? You need to do that. There is a whole checklist. There is a template. I mean, I'm happy to share that. That's again something that I've developed. I will send it across to Amit sir and he can share it with you all. But to make the long story short, it goes through with you step by step the process that what you need to do if you're to put things in the cloud, right? Second, you need to know who is the provider. What are the contracts that you're going to put in place? Have they been audited, right? Has there been a penetration vulnerability test being done? Where is that report? How authentic is that report? Right? And you have the right to even audit if you're a big boy, you're a big company, right? You have the muscle power to ask them. But if you're a small, like let's say you're going to put it in Amazon and you're going to send Amazon your document, the legal team will tell you fly kites. They're not going to entertain you. But today what happens is that people want to take the cheap provider and they compromise. So my basic point is you need to know what you want to put, have your contract in place, make sure that at a very basic, they can provide you the vulnerability and pen test report. And you need to understand that report because that report will give you insights as to what has happened. And it cannot be everything is perfect. If anybody comes and tells you that they've never been hacked, they are talking absolutely rubbish. Everything is hackable. It's just how much time you take. Right, Mike? Over
Yep,
to
time.
my champion to answer now.
What was, I think, what was the average time to discover a data breach is in the order of months. So it's entirely possible a new company comes along and says we've never been breached. They just may not be aware of it. Or even an existing company, they may not actually be aware of the breach. What was I gonna add to that? Another aspect to take into consideration is when you're talking with the provider, find out where the data is going to be stored. So in the case of Europe, the location of the data is also important. So if the data is going to be outside of the EU or outside of a country that is not under the jurisdiction of GDPR, you have to do what's called a transfer impact assessment. The GDPR and the EU love their impact assessments. They love documentation. It almost could take the rule of if it's not documented, it didn't happen. There's no paper trail. So, and in that you have to figure out, can we do binding corporate rules? Will standard contractual clauses apply? Does the country have an adequacy decision with the EU or the EU Commission? There's lots to take into consideration.
Thank you.
I do need to pause for 1 sec. Unfortunately, nature is calling.
No problem.
Sure.
Any other questions, Indrajit?
Yes. Sumit Jain also add on that, does storing data in private clouds are more secure?
Okay, it's a very interesting question whether is slightly more secure than a public cloud, but at the end of the day, like I think what I and Mike said, you need to know who is behind it, right? So it's like your KYC, who is the ultimate beneficial owner? So who is the ultimate beneficial solution provider to the cloud? If you don't even know that, then you're going to get yourself into problem. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I take another question?
Ken, it's only my 11:15 at night. I am still awake, so it's okay. You can ask another question.
Okay. So, a question from Ramamurthy from Chennai.
Okay.
He's asking, fintech firms use lots of bought out data to reach new clients. Is that
Okay.
can be challenged? How did they get the data of an individual?
God, I was correct when I told Amit I'm going to have a tough time because this is a fascinating question. So again, different countries, the laws are different. Now I'm talking from a Singapore perspective. If you get the data, if I get Indrajit's data, right now I got her name as what? Indrajit Kaur. I don't know her. Now I'm assuming that she is from New Delhi. This is her address, blah, blah, blah. And then I send her. If that information is available on the net or publicly available, I have not violated any data protection laws. However, if I bought that information from someone else, I need to make sure that the someone else obtained the consent from Indrajit Kaur before I do what I'm doing. Companies cannot just simply buy data of other companies and then, start their marketing nonsense. So in Singapore, we have got this thing called do not call or do not spam, right? So if my telephone number is in that registry, you cannot call me and annoy me with your nonsensical marketing gimmicks unless I am your existing customer. And per violation, the fine is, if I'm not wrong, 20,000 Singapore dollars per violation. So if you call me 3 times, that is 20 times 3, 60,000 you pay. You cannot pay, you go to jail and start grinding the grind. Okay. So it is the responsibility of the company that is receiving the data to ensure that they have got it in the rightful manner. Okay. So don't just simply accept. There is no free lunch in life. When is free means you are free. Remember, when is free means you are free. All of you love free Wi-Fi. Whenever you go anywhere, free Wi-Fi, you jump at the jump of it, means you are free. Your data can be compromised in 1,000 different ways.
I caught enough of your answer there to get a gist of the question. And even, the data, if you're getting it from a public source, you may not be breaking any privacy laws or rules, but you might actually be breaking the terms and conditions, the rules of the website. For instance, Facebook, you're not allowed to be scraping data. Twitter, you're not supposed to be scraping stuff, right? There are anti-scraping rules in place at a corporate level. So it doesn't mean that just because you're not breaking the law doesn't mean you won't get into trouble with a corporation that owns the website that you're pulling this information from.
Fantastic, Mike.
Moving towards our next question from Venkat Satyaprakash from Vishakhapatnam. Is my data secure on VPN FTP?
VPN FTP, those are, if I'm understanding, so virtual private network and file
Yes.
transfer protocol, those are two distinct. So you can run FTP with inside a VPN. It's private up to your device, that is the client running the VPN client, to the VPN exit point. So if the exit point for the VPN is not the same machine or within the same network or a protected network on the other side, where the FTP resource that you're connecting to the FTP server, then no, I would not consider it private. So whenever you're talking about a VPN, you have to know where the endpoints are, where the connecting point is and where the endpoint is in relation to your device and the resource that you're connecting to.
I will skip that because I have no idea, so I'm not going to comment. That's why I got my expert here.
There's one question from Deepak from Mumbai. Do I need to take client permission to store data in my system or on the cloud? I think this is from auditors point of view.
You definitely need to if it's personal data.
Mhm.
And again, part of one of my, I beg your pardon. The work that I do with CA firms in Singapore, I review their contractual agreements with clients and I put in that clause. Okay, so again, I'm happy to share that, with Amit sir, and he can share it with you all, right? The standard clause. But again, this one is in relation to Singapore data protection laws. Like India, I'm not sure, but I would think it would be very much aligned because they're part of Commonwealth. I don't think it'll be any different. Okay, I don't think they will follow what the US is doing because US is very confused.
But
Okay.
it depends on the part of the US. Some of the states are getting it right,
Some are
but
okay.
yeah.
Majority are confused.
The US is, in my opinion, turning into the pre-GDPR Europe, where everybody is doing whatever it is they want to do, and you can almost look at each state as its own country now with how fragmented it's getting. It's crazy. But for the West of Canada and the EU, I'll use the EU as the example since it kind of sets the gold standard or gold bar in this. It's not necessarily strictly that you have to get consent, but there needs to be a lawful basis, right? So you have to, is there a legitimate interest? You have the consent, right? So there's, why am I drawing a blank? 6 or 7 legitimate interests, or sorry, legal basis is for the the processing of data, and the GDPR uses the word processing and encompasses in there the collection, the storage, the analysis or use, the even deletion is considered a processing activity, right? So. And it doesn't matter if you're putting it into the cloud, if you're putting it on your laptop, on your phone, or you're putting it as papers into a filing system, right? So it extends beyond digital data as well. It says that anytime that you're using it for the material scope, if there is a filing system involved, then GDPR applies. That can be a digital or a physical filing system as well. So, sorry, you have Sanjeev, you have something?
Yeah, so Mike, what you said is exactly what I was telling them, right? So basically, the question I think is from an auditor. So if their CA firm, they sign an agreement with the client, in that agreement, they have to put down very clearly what the contractual clauses would be in terms of data protection, right? Which is exactly what you're saying, but you said it in a more GDPR way with all the clauses, which I cannot remember, but there has to be that thing. And that's why I tell all CA firms, you got to be very careful now. You cannot just simply take it because if there is no legal or business reason to do so, you can be challenged under data protection regulation.
Correct. And my explanation also wanted to expand beyond storage.
Yeah.
I believe the question was related to the storing of data on the cloud
correct.
or a personal device. Yeah, where
Yeah.
I wanted to draw attention that legislation and regulation are moving towards this idea of processing as a whole. So it encompasses
Correct.
more than just storage. Yeah.
Perfect. We have
Next
overshot
question.
the time we have overshot by 22 minutes.
Next question from a common man. That emails may contain some personal data. So are emails stored on Google servers safe? And what about the WhatsApp chat saved on Google Drive?
Aha! Fantastic.
Wow. The WhatsApp is interesting. Yes, it is end-to-end encrypted. But what people don't take into consideration is the metadata. And metadata is the data about data. And if that sounds confusing, well, yeah, it can be very confusing to the uninitiated. So with that metadata, they can figure out, IP addresses. They obviously, can figure out your phone numbers because the accounts are identified as your phone numbers. They can't see the contents of the messages, right? But they can see who you're exchanging messages with, the groups that you're members of, you're a member of, the other members that are in those groups. So there's a lot of metadata that is attached to the messaging, to those WhatsApp messages that Facebook can see. And if you're storing the backups with an Android device to a Google Cloud, I'm not certain if WhatsApp encrypts the backups. If the backups are encrypted, then there's very little Google can see. If they're not encrypted, then there is a potential for Google to be able to go in there and pull the metadata out of it. Emails are interesting depending upon where you are. So in Canada, the jurisdiction of ownership when it comes to data becomes very interesting. So there is, outside of PIPEDA, there is technology laws that state that the data on a particular system is owned by the owner of that system or that hardware or that network, right? However, emails are considered personal information, and if it is a personal email address, if it's a corporate email address, then it's that everything inside there is belongs to the corporate. So while you may be storing email, say on Google, and it's being stored inside, say, a Canadian data center, there's one law that says that Google owns the data that's on there, and there's another one that says that no, you own the emails. So the jurisdiction gets a little muddy. From a technological standpoint, there really is not there's nothing in email protocols, standard email protocols, I should say, that would protect the emails by default. So you'd be relying upon the email provider that is storing your emails to encrypt them and protect them. I believe Sanjeev has moved off. I guess we'll have to move to the next question. He seemed excited for that one, and then he ran away.
The next question. From Basant Kumar Mehta, what is the best way to protect data?
Well, in my talk, the best way to protect data is to make it unavailable. Short of that, the golden standard is to use encryption. But you have to understand how to use encryption. It's not just some pixie dust that you can throw on things and then stuff is protected, right? So there's device encryption, there's communication encryption protocols, there's encryption for key sharing, there's encryption for data at rest. There's symmetrical and asymmetric encryption aspects, right? So just saying, oh, we use encryption is not enough, or the fact that you use encryption. You have to figure out where that encryption is being used, how it's being used. And the reason why a lot of people rely on encryption is, one, the math is extremely hard. No one's going to attack the math. They're going to attack the implementation. So if you're also going to use encryption, make sure that you're using an encryption library or application that is well battle tested. Because if you implement the encryption wrong, you can leak information that way. And another reason is regulators, without saying it, have basically developed what is known as the safe harbor, their encryption safe harbor. And the way they've created this without actually saying it is, if you have information that has been breached or leaked from your organization, or has been accessed incorrectly, or access was incorrectly given, if the data is encrypted and you are confident that your keys have not been compromised and the management of your keys and the storage of your keys is still intact, then that data is considered to be of no use, is no risk to anybody, and therefore you don't even have to report it. The regulators don't care. So that's where this whole idea of an encryption safe harbor came in. If it's encrypted, go at it. So yeah, that's the big emphasis on encryption. So the first is make it as unavailable as possible. If it doesn't need to be out there, don't put it out there. And if it is, find a way of encrypting it and protecting it that way. Sanjeev, the question was, what
I
is
got
the
the
best?
question, Mike.
Oh, okay, sorry. You have something to add?
No, I just wanted to add one thing before we take the other question is, I think there is a big debate going on between all the tech companies and the governments, right? To what extent Google and Microsoft, Facebook, TikTok have information about you. Because exactly what Mike is saying, today, the most powerful person in this world is who? Dr. Google. It's not Indrajit Kaur, it's not Sanjeev, it's Dr. Google. Google knows more about you than you think Google knows. Right? So maybe you should try to type in chat GTP, Indrajit Kaur, CA, see what comes out. And you might be stunned. There might be something, I don't know. Right? Because again, Mike will tell you the World Wide Web, as what you guys and I know, is only this www. But what is beyond the World Wide Web, the dark web, you'd have no clue what people think about you. Right? This is only 2% of the world's net traffic. If you have never been to the dark web, I don't suggest you go, but I've been once, not from Singapore, but from outside. It is fascinating. The amount of data that you find about people, it is absolutely fantastic. Okay. So maybe next time when I physically go to India, we can do a demonstration. That would be fantastic. But
It would be.
Yes.
I guess one more thing to add on the encryption side of things, I should qualify it of use proper encryption, right? Or strong encryption, not stuff that's been compromised or will be compromised soon. So look at stuff like there's AES 512-bit is soon to be standardized. At the very least, use AES 256 if it's symmetrical. If it's asymmetric, again, look at the bit count. RSA, should be looking at 4096 and up. There's electric curve cryptography. You should be at least 128, preferably 256 if it offers that. And if you really want to be future-proof and be the cool kid on the block, look at employing quantum safe or quantum proof encryption for two reasons. One, that's where encryption is going, and NIST will eventually make that the minimum standard as AES is phased out over the next many years. But right now, we're at an interesting time where data that is stolen now that is encrypted could be decrypted later as quantum computers become more accessible. Now there's debates on when the quantum computers will be accessible to state actors and large enterprises and then eventually the average Joe. But these are known as what steal now, decrypt later attacks, so SNDL attacks. And people are basically gambling on hoarding all this data, encrypted or not, and gambling that they'll be able to decrypt it at some point where the data is still actionable. So.
Okay, thank you.
So I think this would be enough for today's session with questions and answers.
Thank you.
So moving towards concluding the today webinar, so I would like to thank you, Mr. Thoresen and Mr. Gathani, for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us today, and your insights have been invaluable. And we all appreciate your dedication to the field of data privacy and protection, and how beautifully you take all the questions and answer the question and give us wisdom and the right direction to protect our data. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
And before closing, my sincere gratitude to each and every one of you for your gracious presence and invaluable contribution to this course, and your presence and insights have enriched our understanding and deepened our appreciation of this important subject. So a very good evening to all of you.
Thank you. thank you to the organizers, and thank you for having us, and thank you to the audience for bringing forward questions. Whenever I make a presentation, it's like, okay, this is what I want to talk about, but I love hearing the questions and getting the discussion going to figure out what what the eager minds want to know. So thank you.
So thank you again for everyone, and whatever that I've promised you, I will send it to Amit sir, but just give me a day.
Okay.
By Monday it'll all be with Amit sir, whatever that I've promised you all. Okay, have a nice day and enjoy your day, and I'll enjoy my beauty sleep now.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.